Chapter 472. Like a gust of wind, Yang Dingtian and Song Chunhua led the victorious Devil Dragon army into Cloud Sky City. At this moment, in the huge plaza of Cloud Sky City, hundreds of thousands of people were still frantically building. Compared to when Yang Dingtian left, the new city wall had already expanded by a few dozen meters. Another 2,000 meters or so, and the entire city wall would be completely surrounded. Before entering the city gate, Yang Dingtian suddenly stopped. When he saw that Cho Yiming was in a daze after seeing this huge scene, he couldn't help but lower his head and ask, "Young Lord Cho, what are your thoughts after seeing this scene?" Cho Yiming hurriedly turned his head and said, "Thoughts? What thoughts can I have?" Yang Dingtian said, "I heard that you think about my women every day. Tell me, among my women, who do you think about the most?" Cho Yiming was suddenly afraid. Any man would be incomparably angry at being cuckolded. When he heard Yang Dingtian say this, he immediately felt that Yang Dingtian was about to start torturing him. "Yang Dingtian, what do you want?" "I am the young master of the Divine Weapons Mountain Villa. What do you want to do to me?" Cho Yiming asked nervously. "No, I don't plan to do anything." Yang Dingtian smiled and said, "I just heard that you covet my women, so I want to ask, which one of my women do you covet the most? Tell me, I promise that I won't do anything to you." Cho Yiming's playboy attitude rose and said, "Fine, I'll tell you. Yang Dingtian, you are just a lowly commoner and your background is unknown. If it wasn't for Shimin Wuya thinking highly of you, how could you become the Cloud Sky City Lord? How could you be worthy of having Shimin Yanyan, Qin Jiaojiao, Song Chunhua, Song Lihua, these noble beauties? In terms of background and appearance, which part of you can compare to me? If you want these beauties, why can't I?" Yang Dingtian said, "All right, just speak the truth. Chunhua, come here." Song Chunhua came over with a cold expression. Yang Dingtian pointed at Song Chunhua and said, "You said that among my women, Chunhua is included. Take a look now, what is my relationship with her?" Cho Yiming looked along the way and felt that Yang Dingtian and Song Chunhua didn't seem to be in a relationship. "Young Master Cho, tell me, which one of my women do you covet the most?" Yang Dingtian smiled and asked, "Of you Ning of nine Ning, of you of Ning, I have my eyes on Song Ning. As of the cloud of her, of 9,000, I have of 999 of 9,000 of 9. Although I of my of 9 of her of 9 dragon. I of Yiming of I of 9 of her, I of you." Then, Yang Dingtian turned around, carried Cho Yiming, and quickly flew in the direction of Song Lihua. Arriving in front of Song Lihua, Yang Dingtian didn't say anything. He pointed at the dark and thin woman with dirty hair and a dirty face and said, "Young Master Cho, this is the Song Lihua that you covet, the woman of my legend." "Ah." Cho Yiming looked at the dark and thin woman in front of him. She was dressed in coarse cloth and her hair was dirty and messy. She didn't have the peerless beauty of Song Lihua. After looking for a while, Cho Yiming finally recognized that this was indeed Song Lihua. But how did she become like this? It was worse than a fairy in the sky becoming a village girl. Cho Yiming couldn't hide the shocked expression on his face. His mouth opened so wide that it could swallow a duck egg. "Are you still coveting hers?" Yang Dingtian asked. Cho Yiming instinctively trembled, and then suddenly shook his head. "Look at that person again." Yang Dingtian pointed at another person in the crowd. On the ground not far away, a group of cavalry was neatly sleeping on the ground. Everyone was tightly attached to their war horses and directly slept on the dirty ground. Only one person was sitting. That person's hair was completely covered in dust. His whole body was like a clay figurine. Just like that, he sat on the dirt ground, looking at Song Lihua's back with a fiery gaze. Although Song Lihua had become even worse than a village girl, and she didn't even have time to clean her teeth these days. Her body was sweaty and smelly. But in this man's eyes, Song Chunhua was more beautiful than ever, like a fairy in the sky. Every time it was his turn to rest, he would sit on the dirt ground like this, staring at her back in a daze. But some people think that Song Lihua is more beautiful than ever. Yang Dingtian pointed at the mud-like villager and said, "This person is the Northwest Qin City's young master, Qin Huayu." Chou Yiming was shocked again. Although Qin Huayu wasn't very handsome, he was very elegant, noble, and elegant. Compared to other Chou Yiming, he was much better. Moreover, his identity was much more noble than Chou Yiming's. In the past, he was Chou Yiming's most direct target of jealousy. But now, he was sitting on the dirt ground like an old farmer in a daze. Yang Dingtian took out a pill and directly stuffed it into Chou Yiming's mouth. Chou Yiming was shocked and said, What did you feed me?" "A poison. In this world, only I have the antidote." Yang Dingtian said, "You're a big shot, but we are too busy. We don't have time to entertain you properly. I won't bother you. As long as you don't leave Cloud Sky City, you can go anywhere you want and see anything you want. Look, that person is Zhu Hongxue, the one who is spitting fire at the dirt." Chou Yiming was stunned again. Zhu Hongxue was the target he looked up to. He was like a high mountain that he could only look up to. How noble, how elegant. Now, there was a belt tied around his waist, and the color of his clothes couldn't be seen. A piece of cloth was wrapped around his hair, and he was spitting fire at the city wall. Why? Why is this happening? Just how noble were these people's identities? Why are they being ruined like this? Why is this happening? After the war ends, no matter if we win or lose, I will let you go back and give you the antidote. But during this time, you can't use any mystic qi. Once you use it, your sea of qi will feel like it is about to split open. It will be very painful. After saying that, Yang Dingtian lifted Chou Yiming up and said, "All right, I will bring you to see someone."
"Who?"
Chou Yiming said with a trembling voice. Yang Dingtian rode on the demonic dragon and flew towards the city. "Aren't you thinking about my wife, Qin Jiaojiao? I'll take you to see her now. You can stay with her until the end of the war." Chou Yiming was stunned and looked at Yang Dingtian in disbelief. There was actually such a good thing. Yang Dingtian rushed into Jiao Jiao's small building in Cloud Sky City. At this moment, Jiao Jiao was fully armed and was practicing swordsmanship with her maid and half-sister, Qin Susu. When she saw Yang Dingtian, Jiao Jiao was ecstatic. She threw away her sword and was about to pounce on him. "Husband, I am practicing swordsmanship. When the war starts, I will definitely protect Baobao, Aoshuang, and everyone in our family," Jiao Jiao said. "You little idiot, it's already amazing that you can protect yourself." But Yang Dingtian still coaxed her lovingly, "Good Jiao Jiao, you are really amazing." "Bah, you must be calling me an idiot in your heart. Don't think I don't know." Jiao Jiao pouted and then leaned on Yang Dingtian's arms. She looked at Chou Yiming and said, Who is this trash? He looks so familiar." Instantly, Chou Yiming's self-esteem suffered a huge blow. Qin Jiaojiao and Qin Huayu went to the Divine Weapons Manor a few times, and every time, Chou Yiming would try his best to curry favor with them. Also, Qiu Wanjie dreamed of having a marriage alliance with Qin City, so he really hoped that Chou Yiming could pursue Qin Jiaojiao. Before Qin Jiaojiao married Yang Dingtian, her reputation wasn't good, and her personality wasn't good either. She was heartless, vicious, and merciless. She liked men to pursue her and then trample on them. Chou Yiming was once toyed with until he wanted to die. Chou Yiming felt that it was unforgettable, but he didn't expect that he would be asked, "Who is this trash? He looks so familiar." "This is the young lord of the Divine Weapons Manor, Chou Yiming." Yang Dingtian said, "Jiao Jiao, I will give you a mission for these few days. Watch him every day. Wherever he wants to go, let him see it. Remember, his mystic qi is sealed. You can't hit him, understand?" Qin Jiaojiao's beautiful eyes instantly lit up, revealing a terrifying gaze. "Divine Weapons Manor's Chou Yiming, you are purposely going against my beloved husband? Good, good. Today you are in my hands. I will definitely let you know how powerful I am." Chou Yiming's body trembled, and he couldn't help but feel a chill down his spine. He had a bad feeling. All right, be good. I will leave this mission to you. I am going to do something, Yang Dingtian said. And don't worry, husband, Qin Jiaojiao said excitedly. I will definitely change him completely. Remember, you can't hit him, understand? Yang Dingtian repeated worriedly. Sect head, is this okay? Song Chunhua asked. I understand Chou Yiming. He is not a bad person, but he has a hedonistic aura. He can be changed. Yang Dingtian said, not only do we have to prepare for the war, but we also have to prepare for the war after. Make our friends more and more, and our enemies less and less. Yang Dingtian was right. Chou Yiming was a typical hedonistic person. It was right to say that he was spineless and afraid of death, but sometimes he was very straightforward. It was also possible to say that he was not a good person, but he was definitely not completely bad. All right, call Qin Huayu and Shimin Lai over. Let's have a short summary meeting regarding the Devil Dragon Army, Yang Dingtian said. Yes, Song Chunhua said. Then, she sent out a few messengers riding on the Devil Dragon Army to deliver the message. The attack on the Divine Weapons Mountain Villa in Sky Thunder City went very smoothly. The results were much better than expected. Yang Dingtian said, we killed about 40,000 people from the Divine Weapons Mountain Villa and destroyed 2 groups of heavy cavalry. We destroyed the tunnel and captured the Divine Weapons Mountain Villa's young master, Chou Yiming. Therefore, the first step of the strategy was completed perfectly. Yang Dingtian picked up a flag and directly inserted it into the sand table where Sky Thunder City was. Those in charge of military affairs in Cloud Heaven City all sat around the sand table and had a short meeting. However, the Devil Dragon Army also suffered unprecedented losses. Yang Dingtian said, I just received a report. In this operation, we lost a total of 130 Devil Dragon Army soldiers. Among them, 95 Devil Dragons died and 35 Devil Dragons were heavily injured. The Devil Dragon Army also suffered more than 40 casualties. The losses this time were greater than the total losses of all the previous military operations combined. Moreover, this was based on the fact that the enemy's Crystal Crossbow warriors gave up attacking. Otherwise, the Devil Dragon Army's casualties would be even greater. Therefore, the Divine Weapons Mountain Villa's Crystal Crossbow Army is the Devil Dragon Army's nemesis, especially the dense Crystal Crossbows and the Crystal Crossbow warriors flying in the air. Yang Dingtian said, there is one more thing that everyone did not expect. Moreover, only 30% of the Devil Dragon Army's casualties were caused by the Crystal Crossbow warriors. The remaining 70% were caused by the Divine Weapons Mountain Villa's infantry. Suddenly, everyone exclaimed in disbelief. The Devil Dragon Army was so powerful, but 70% of their casualties were caused by infantry. Not cavalry, but infantry. In this ambush, when the Devil Dragon Army killed 40,000 enemies, there were almost no casualties. Later on, when they killed less than 5,000 enemies, there were almost 100 casualties. Yang Dingtian said, why is that? Chunhua, tell me. Song Chunhua said, in the beginning, the enemy was not prepared at all. The Devil Dragon Army's rapid charge and rapid suppression caused huge casualties to the enemy. Moreover, the Devil Dragon Army did not suffer any casualties. However, later on, the Devil Dragon Army lost their advantage in speed. When they were entangled by the enemy's infantry, they began to suffer casualties. That's right. The enemy's infantry panicked and did not have any organization. However, they still caused almost 100 casualties to our Devil Dragon Army, far more than the Crystal Crossbow warriors. Yang Dingtian said, therefore, in conclusion, the Devil Dragon Army must always be in the process of moving quickly. Only when they are moving quickly can the Devil Dragon Army be invincible. Once they stop and get entangled, even the enemy's heavy infantry can cause casualties to the Devil Dragon Army. The Devil Dragon Army is very precious. We cannot accept any more losses. Yang Dingtian said, therefore, when we use the Devil Dragon Army in battle in the future, we must pay attention to 2 points. First, it must be used in ambushes and harassing battles. It cannot be used in positional battles and cannot be entangled by the enemy. Second, After encountering a certain number of crystal crossbow warriors, the Devil Dragon army must fight cautiously. Yes! Everyone shouted. Alright, next is the second point. Yang Dingtian said, after the first step of fighting 3, releasing 1, we will immediately begin the second step of fighting 3, which is the World Guild in the north. How should we fight? Suddenly, everyone fell into silence. The World Guild that was crossing the sea was very troublesome. Although the north of Cloud Sky City was filled with steep hills, unlike the south which was flat, there was no defense line. However, the north side of Yunshao City did not have any defensive line. Once it was breached, it would be destroyed in an instant. Cloud Sky City had placed all of its defenses in the south. To be more precise, they placed all of it on the city walls that spanned over 100 miles. It was for the final battle with the southern army of the punitive army. The north of Cloud Sky City was very weak and empty. Yet, the World Guild chose to cross the dangerous Poison Strait to attack the weakest part of Cloud Sky City. There was another point. Song Lihua and Song Chunhua were both from the World Guild. More than 3,000 Devil Dragon warriors and 10,000 warriors were also from the World Guild. The only enemy of the World Guild was Song Minghua. Song Xiao was extremely stubborn, but he was still the leader of the World Guild. Moreover, there were still 4,000 Devil Dragon army in the World Guild army crossing the sea. Song Xiao seemed to have gone crazy. He actually sent out all of the reserve Devil Dragon army. All of the elite troops of the World Guild and the military power of the territory were sent out in full force, as if they were going to fight Yang Dingtian to the death. Moreover, they chose the most vulnerable northern direction. It could be said that once the World Guild army crossed the sea and landed, Cloud Sky City would be in trouble. Without a defensive line, Yang Dingtian did not have enough power to resist the hundreds of thousands of troops of the World Guild. Moreover, the army of the World Guild was neither friend nor foe. They had no choice but to fight. It was very difficult to grasp this scale. For example, the World Society's remaining Devil Dragon army, you need to eliminate them. What would Yang Dingtian's Devil Dragon army think? Those people were once their brothers. If they really killed all of the World Guild's Devil Dragon army, Yang Dingtian's Devil Dragon army would be disloyal. However, if Yang Dingtian was merciful, the other party might not be merciful. Song Xiao and Song Minghua would definitely not be merciful. They would definitely destroy Cloud Sky City. Sect Master, I'll bring my brothers and head north. Song Chunhua suddenly said, bring me some secret weapons and attack them halfway across the sea. We'll completely destroy them on the sea. Everyone was silent. Song Chunhua said, even though those people were my brothers and my subordinates, for the sake of justice, we can't care so much. Since they're helping the evildoer, they have to accept the result of destruction. Yang Dingtian remained silent. Song Chunhua said, Sect Master, we can't hesitate anymore. They already have tens of thousands of troops on land. Once more than 100,000 troops have landed, their Devil Dragon army will also start to land. When that time comes, it will be difficult to completely destroy them. The World Guild's logistics troops were the ones who landed on the sea. First of all, they weren't worth much. If Yang Dingtian attacked, it wouldn't be a pity if they all died. Moreover, if they landed first, they could set up a defensive line on the coast. Once the defensive line was completely set up, the elite troops would continue to land on the sea. As the trump card, the Devil Dragon army couldn't be allowed to cross the sea alone. They had to wait until there were enough elite troops on the south coast before letting the Devil Dragon army land. Of course, this also showed Song Zhao's conflicted heart. First of all, it was the mentality of a gambler. He clearly knew that Yang Dingtian only wanted to attack the south coast. His troops wouldn't be able to land successfully, and all of them would be wiped out. However, he was betting that Yang Dingtian wasn't so ruthless. Because of pity and other reasons, he wouldn't kill the World Guild's troops. Of course, this was a despicable act. He made use of Yang Dingtian's pity to launch a fatal attack on Yang Dingtian's weak spot. Secondly, it was his conservative heart that didn't dare to take risks. Since he was gambling, he didn't dare to send the strongest Devil Dragon army. Instead, he sent the most worthless logistics troops. Therefore, Yang Dingtian's heart was filled with contempt and disdain for Song Shao. However, once more than 100,000 troops landed on the sea, once his devil dragon army also successfully landed on the sea, then it would be a complete disaster for Cloud Sky City. It might even lead to destruction. Therefore, Song Chunhua said that he wouldn't care about their previous relationship and would kill all of the World Guild's troops that landed on the sea. At this moment, if Song Chunhua led the secret weapon and the Devil Dragon army, they could still make it. They could completely wipe out the World Guild's troops that had already landed on the sea and completely stop the World Guild's hundreds of thousands of troops from landing. Although the World Guild's hundreds of thousands of troops were powerful, they couldn't fly across the straits. Once the troops that successfully landed on the northwest continent were wiped out, it meant that the World Guild's hundreds of thousands of troops wouldn't have to worry about them anymore. City Lord, a great man must be ruthless.
Give the order, Song Chunhua said loudly.
Yang Dingtian slowly opened his eyes and said, "No, there's a better way. I'll go north alone and stop the World Guild's hundreds of thousands of troops from crossing the sea and going south." Instantly, everyone exclaimed, "No, impossible." Song Chunhua said, "Firstly, you can't do it. Secondly, as a leader, you can't risk your life. This is a very childish act." "No, there won't be any danger," Yang Dingtian said. "How can there not be any danger?" Qin Huayu said, "Song Shao is close to a grandmaster. You're not his match. Once you're alone, he won't kill you, but he definitely won't mind capturing you and humiliating you. Once that happens, the entire Cloud Sky City is doomed to be destroyed." Yang Dingtian stood up and said, "I'm not trying to be a hero. I made this decision after much consideration. I promise everyone that I won't be in any danger. I alone can completely destroy the World Guild's hundreds of thousands of troops crossing the sea." Song Chunhua and the others were shocked. The World Guild had turned out in full force this time. There was a grandmaster close to a grandmaster, several grandmasters, and hundreds of thousands of troops. Yang Dingtian's true strength was only a 9-star revered martial artist. Even if he was a genius, if he went alone, he would definitely be like a lamb entering a tiger's den. He actually said that he could destroy the World Guild's hundreds of thousands of troops crossing the sea without any danger. How could everyone not be shocked? Qin Huayu said, "It's still not possible. You're too important. Tell me this method, and I'll do it. My talent isn't as good as yours, but my cultivation is higher than yours. I believe that I can do what you can do." Yang Dingtian shook his head and said, "No, you can't do it. Other than me, no one can do it because I'm the only one who has more than 2 mystic flames." Suddenly, everyone fell into silence. Song Chunhua said, "Sect Master, are you sure you won't be in any danger?" "I'm sure," Yang Dingtian said, "there won't be any danger. I definitely won't joke around with my life. I know that my life doesn't belong to me now. It belongs to the 1 million people in Cloud Sky City. Not only that, you're also representing the Tiando League. Once you die, everything will be over," Qin Huayu said. "I know." Yang Dingtian stood up and said to everyone, "I promise everyone again that I won't be in any danger. Please approve my operation." Basically, Yang Dingtian made all the decisions regarding large-scale strategies. But when it came to specific operations, especially those that concerned him, it had to be approved by the entire committee. Song Chunhua took a deep breath and raised his hand. Then, Qin Huayu, Zhu Hongxue, and the others all raised their hands. Yang Dingtian stood up and said, "There's no time to lose. Before daybreak, I'll immediately head north and carry out the operation to destroy the World Guild. Time is precious. Everyone do your jobs." Immediately, the entire committee members quickly dispersed and returned to their jobs with the fastest speed. Sleep?
Rest? Night?
To them, it was too extravagant. Under the protection of the night, Yang Dingtian flew into the sky and headed north alone. He would destroy the World Guild's 300,000 troops sea crossing operation alone. In the sky above Cloud Sky City, Song Chunhua came to send Yang Dingtian off. Suddenly, she looked at Yang Dingtian and said, "You said that there won't be any danger." "I promise again," Yang Dingtian said. Immediately, the two fell silent. Yang Dingtian said, "I'll leave the safety of Cloud Sky City to you during this period of time. Immediately withdraw the people outside the city. We attacked Sky Thunder City. The enemy might take revenge." "Yes," Song Chunhua said. Then Song Chunhua said, If the other party sends out an air force to attack, should our Demon Eagle army be deployed?" Yang Dingtian immediately frowned and shook his head. "No, we won't deploy." "What if there are a lot of casualties and losses?" Song Chunhua asked. "We won't deploy either," Yang Dingtian said firmly. "I understand," Song Chunhua said. Yang Dingtian said, "All right, you can go back. I'm leaving." Then, Yang Dingtian was about to fly north. Suddenly, Song Chunhua went forward and hugged Yang Dingtian. "Yang Dingtian, after this war, I don't just want to be your comrade. I want to be a woman for once." Yang Dingtian was shocked when he heard her words that he had never heard before. Chapter 473. Song Chunhua would always appear as the Steel Warrior. She was taller than a man and had always been the most trustworthy commander in the hearts of countless soldiers. She was Yang Dingtian's most loyal follower. Yang Dingtian was undoubtedly the number 2 person on his side. Even Qin Huayu had a clear position on this. Most of the time, this person hid himself in his mighty armor. Almost no one thought of her as a woman. Even she didn't think of herself as a woman. Even though she had taken off her armor and let her hair down, her delicate figure and appearance were more feminine than almost any other woman. But she had always been a mountain-like warrior and commander. In such a long time, she had only shown her feminine weakness twice. The first time was in the secret realm of Despair City. She had taken off her disguise and released the fullness and softness of a woman, allowing the tired and pained Yang Dingtian to rely on her. The second time was now. And then I will look forward to the arrival of that day. It was rare for Yang Dingtian to joke with Song Chunhua. Usually, she was too serious. Yang Dingtian didn't dare to joke with her. When he spoke to her, he could only be serious. After hearing Yang Dingtian's words, Song Chunhua blushed and put on her helmet again. "Take care." Her voice instantly regained its solemnity, as if nothing had happened just now. Then, she directly jumped onto the demonic dragon and flew towards Cloud Sky City's city walls. Yang Dingtian used his mystic skill and flew a few thousand meters up into the sky, quickly flying towards the north. A few hundred miles north of Cloud Sky City, there were messy and continuous mountain ranges everywhere. The hinterland of Cloud Sky City was surrounded by huge mountain ranges. Therefore, this sprawling and messy mountain range became Cloud Sky City's greatest protection. Cloud Sky City's main castle was built on the Great Cloud Sky Mountain, which was 1,000 meters above sea level. It stood tall and was easy to defend but hard to attack. As a martial arts force, Cloud Sky City, with the protection of the 4 main castles, was enough. However, as the upcoming war faced a huge change in the world, the Cloud Castle was already far from enough. Therefore, a city that was a few hundred li in size was suddenly formed under the protection of 100 li of city walls when the war was about to begin. Yang Dingtian flew at an altitude of several thousand meters, overlooking the dark northern mountain range. The mountain range to the north of Cloud Sky City was really complicated. It was very steep and abrupt, and had strange shapes. The entire mountain range of several hundred miles could be said to be extremely difficult to march through. Therefore, basically, no army would choose to attack Cloud Sky City from this direction, except for the Air Force. But he did not expect that the stubborn and narrow-minded Song Xiao would choose to march in this direction. For this reason, he did not hesitate to take the risk of crossing the extended Poison Strait. His actions had indeed hit Yang Dingtian's weak spot. Although it would be extremely difficult for an army of a few 100,000 to cross this chaotic mountain range, Yang Dingtian couldn't just sit back and watch. He couldn't just sit back and relax. If his army of hundreds of thousands were to charge over, then everything would be over. All of Yang Dingtian's military forces had already been placed on the city walls. His back was extremely weak. Once the World Society Army successfully crossed the sea and crossed the mountain range of several hundred li, Cloud Sky City would be completely destroyed in an instant. Poison Extension Strait. This was a strait that was 10,000 li long, spanning between the north and the northwest continent. The widest part was more than 1,000 li, and the narrowest part was only a few dozen li. Because the seawater here was all polluted by the Ecstasy River, there were no living creatures, and it was impossible to cross. Especially the sea area to the north of the Sky Maze City, it was completely a death zone. Even if one flew a few thousand meters high, they would still be poisoned to death. At the strait north of Cloud Sky City, although the poison in the Ecstasy River was already very weak, it was still a death zone. No one would choose to cross the sea here, because once they fell into the water, they would still be poisoned. Therefore, whether they went north to the World Society or south to the World Society, they could only walk a few thousand li across the land bridge and take a few thousand li detour. Yang Dingtian's flying speed was very fast. In just an hour, he had already flown 500 li and reached the end of the mountain range. In front of him was the Poison Extension Strait. The seawater was suffused with a terrifying green color. A dazzling green color rose from the surface of the sea. The strait that stretched for 10,000 li was like a gorgeous and highly poisonous green ribbon that surrounded the entire northwest continent. The Ecstasy River was blood red and poisonous. However, after flowing into the sea, it reacted with some unknown composition in the seawater and turned into an even more bizarre green color. Looking from afar, the two sides of the Poison Extension Strait seemed to be dotted with countless stars. Above the strait, a long belt of fiery stars connected the two sides. Yang Dingtian flew quietly, getting closer and closer. The scene of the Poison Extension Strait became clearer and clearer. Even though he was mentally prepared, Yang Dingtian still couldn't help but gasp. What a grand scene! What a grand scene! The north side of the strait had already become an incomparably huge military camp. There were hundreds of thousands of soldiers, stretching for dozens of li, densely packed and dark. Countless tents were spread out on the ground of hundreds of square kilometers. Countless torches, looking from the sky, looked like the stars in the sky. Moreover, there was an endless stream of troops heading south. Song Xiao had gone crazy. His hatred for Yang Dingtian had already reached the depths of his bones. His troops heading south were no longer just 350,000. They were actually continuously gathering and gathering. The current Song Zhao's desire to destroy Cloud Sky City was no less than that of Qin Chichi and Ning Wuming. Qin Chichi and Ning Wuming did not have much hatred for Yang Dingtian. They just wanted to make an example out of him. As for Song Xiao and Song Minghua, it was a bone-deep hatred. They wanted to destroy Yang Dingtian and raze Cloud Sky City to the ground. The Poison Extension Strait was extremely complicated and dangerous. Almost every year, there would be an intense tsunami eruption. Almost every year, there would be an intense earthquake at the bottom of the sea. Therefore, only a section of the sea that was less than 2,000 meters wide could be crossed. At this moment, all the warships were crowded in this section of the sea. Although the world meeting was surrounded by the sea, ships could not be disembarked from these seas. Therefore, there were almost no warships in the world meeting. Yang Dingtian did not know where these ships came from. However, these ships were not large, and each ship could only transport 100 soldiers at a time. And in this section of the sea that was 2,000 meters wide, only about 10 ships could be lined up at most. Any more, and there would be trouble. At this moment, this section of the sea that was 2,000 meters wide and 20,000 meters wide was crowded with hundreds of ships. These ships were neatly arranged in a square formation and sailed carefully. Their speed was not more than 10 kilometers per hour. Because of this, the World Meeting's army had already been crossing the sea for 3 days. Hundreds of ships had only transported a few 100,000 soldiers. There were still close to 300,000 soldiers waiting to cross the sea in the north. However, the good news was that a portion of the military equipment and war horses had already crossed the strait. At this moment, the southern coast of the strait had become a huge military camp. Tens of thousands of logistics troops had already built a temporary defensive line here. 70 to 80,000 soldiers had already set up a defense here. Moreover, there were already about 1,000 members of the Devil Dragon Army who had successfully crossed the sea and landed on the shore. At this moment, they were quickly patrolling the temporary defensive line. In the sky above the strait, close to 1,000 flying knights were vigilantly watching the airspace within 100 miles. They had the Air Army and the Devil Dragon Army. It was already very difficult to completely destroy the World Meeting's defensive line in the south. Unless Yang Dingtian was willing to mobilize the Devil Eagle Army and the entire Devil Dragon Army, as well as tens of thousands of soldiers. But this was impossible. If he mobilized such a large force to fight to the death, then what would happen when Qin Chi's Real Army arrived at the city? At this moment, in this dangerous strait, the World Meeting's army had set up a three-dimensional defense of the sea, land, and air. Even if Yang Dingtian wanted to launch a surprise attack, there was no way he could do it. The defense was too tight, especially since the experts of the World Meeting had almost all come out. Song Xiaojin, Martial Grandmaster, and 4 or 5 Martial Grandmaster Elders, as well as an unknown number of martial honorable experts, were all eyeing covetously on both sides of the strait. It was impossible to launch a surprise attack halfway across the strait. Yang Dingtian had almost made a military order in the committee. He wanted to single-handedly destroy the World Meeting's hundreds of thousands of soldiers crossing the sea without any failure. How should he do it? Even though everyone in the committee didn't dare to believe this and couldn't imagine how he could do it. But they still chose to believe in Yang Dingtian. Then, how could Yang Dingtian achieve this impossible miracle? Whoosh! Yang Dingtian quickly turned invisible and entered the isolated space. Then he continued to descend. In the isolated space, Yang Dingtian quickly consumed the elixir and held his breath. Immediately, Yang Dingtian silently dived into the seawater. That's right, the seawater here was poisonous. Suddenly, a strange and indistinct smell violently drilled into Yang Dingtian's nostrils. Even though Yang Dingtian was mentally prepared, his mind was still in a daze, and he almost lost his mind. Yang Dingtian immediately sealed all the pores on his body. All the profound qi in his body entered his mouth. Then, he quickly used the mystic flame to build an energy shield around his body. Then he continued to sink, and sink. This was a lifeless sea. There were no living creatures in the sea. There was only green seawater forever. Even the seawater was almost not flowing. It was almost solidified. Everywhere was lifeless. Yang Dingtian continued to sink, and sink. Suddenly, the pressure on his body became greater and greater. Below, the seawater became hotter and greener. This strait was too deep. It was completely beyond Yang Dingtian's imagination. After a few thousand meters, he still couldn't see the bottom. After 10,000 meters, he still couldn't see the bottom. After 20,000 meters, he still couldn't see the bottom. After 30,000 meters, finally, he saw the bottom of the sea. Yang Dingtian had never seen such a bottom of the sea. It was transparent. That's right. The entire bottom of the sea was full of transparent crystals. Moreover, they were fiery red crystals. Every inch of it contained a terrifying amount of energy. The most important thing was that these crystals were constantly growing. That's right. They were growing. As if they had absorbed some kind of energy, they were constantly growing. Why did Yang Dingtian know that they were growing? Because he heard the crunching sound of the squeezing. Countless crystals were growing, so they were constantly squeezing, and squeezing. Yang Dingtian already clearly felt that these countless crystals were completely on the verge of exploding. The situation was better than Yang Dingtian imagined, but it was also worse. How did Yang Dingtian plan to destroy the world society's sea crossing operation? That's right. He wanted to create an underwater earthquake and a tsunami. This was the inspiration that Yang Dingtian got from the bottom of the southern barbarian continent. At that time, Master's soul suppressed the demon's spirit heart and burst forth with terrifying energy. It directly caused a huge earthquake at the bottom of the sea and caused a terrifying tsunami. Yang Dingtian heard that the poison extension strait north of Cloud Sky City was the most unstable strait in the world. There were earthquakes and tsunamis every year. It was fine if people in the chaotic world heard about it. However, after Yang Dingtian heard about it, he knew that the bottom of the sea was very unbalanced. It was constantly nurturing powerful energy that could explode very easily. As long as the energy was stimulated, it would explode.
How to stimulate it?
No matter how fragile the energy at the bottom of the sea was, it was still incomparably huge. Therefore, the energy needed to stimulate it was also very large. Simply bombarding it with mystic fire shouldn't be enough. Therefore, Yang Dingtian planned to use the collision of two mystic flames. Furthermore, it was a collision of mystic flames of different attributes. Yang Dingtian possessed 3 mystic flames, and they were of different attributes. Once they collided, how powerful would the energy be? It was completely unimaginable. Therefore, under the collision of the 3 mystic fires, it should directly stimulate the fragile energy at the bottom of the sea, causing an earthquake and a tsunami. Once a tsunami occurred, it would be completely fatal to the hundreds of battleships in this narrow strait. It could easily destroy these battleships in an instant and directly destroy the world society's southward operation. There might even be huge casualties. Therefore, Yang Dingtian came personally. He felt that this detonation could only be done by him. However, it seemed that there was no need to use the mystic fires to collide. The crystals at the bottom of the sea were already extremely crowded. With a slight stimulation, it would explode, cause an earthquake and a tsunami. Now, Yang Dingtian had to pay attention to not be injured in such a huge explosion. Yang Dingtian made a rough estimation. This time, the violent energy of the crystals at the bottom of the sea should be more than dozens or hundreds of great masters. Moreover, it would explode instantly upon impact. It wasn't like the underwater earthquake in the southern barbarian continent, which was mainly tearing and shaking. With Yang Dingtian's physique, he probably wouldn't be able to withstand such an instantaneous explosion. Therefore, Yang Dingtian had to think of another way. He had to detonate the underwater earthquake and protect his own safety. Of course, this wasn't a problem for Yang Dingtian. He directly took out a huge metal ball from his space ring and used mystic fire to ignite the fuse. Then, he placed it on the terrifying energy crystals at the bottom of the sea. Then, Yang Dingtian quickly left. At this moment, in Cloud Sky City, under Song Chunhua's orders, all the people outside the city had retreated back into the city in the shortest time possible. Even all the land military personnel had retreated back into the city. The huge open space outside the city was suddenly empty. Hundreds of flying cavalrymen patrolled in the air with extreme vigilance, searching every inch of information on the ground. This was because Yang Dingtian had just led the Demon Dragon Army to attack Sky Thunder City and dealt a huge blow to the Divine Weapons Mountain Villa. Even young Master Cho Yiming had been captured. Therefore, the enemy might take revenge, and it would be a huge revenge. At this moment, the sky was gradually brightening. The first ray of sunlight had already shone from the east onto the ground. The flying cavalrymen of Cloud Sky City widened their eyes and looked at every inch of the ground, afraid of missing out on any information. In the city, Song Lihua rarely washed her face and brushed her teeth. As she washed her face, she complained to Song Chunhua, "Sister, do you know how many things have been delayed by us retreating back into the city? In less than a dozen miles, our city wall will be completely completed." For safety's sake, Song Chunhua said solemnly, "Where's your family's great leader, Yang Dingtian?"
Song Lihua asked.
Then, she desperately used the cold water to stimulate her face and body, afraid that she would fall asleep. She was completely sleepy. As long as she lay down, it was guaranteed that she wouldn't wake up for a few days. However, this wasn't the time to sleep. After a slight hesitation, she took off her clothes, revealing her graceful and thin body. She was prepared to thoroughly stimulate her body in the cold water and take a bath while she was at it. She didn't know how long it had been since she last bathed. such a great beauty, was about to rot. Don't say such things, Song Chunhua said coldly. Song Lihua took off her clothes. Her entire body was like a mud monkey, and it was impossible to see what was going on. I don't know if Qin Huayu will still dare to eat me after seeing me like this, Song Lihua said with a smile. Then, she shivered and directly dived into the cold water. Ah! After being hit by the cold water with ice cubes, the sleepy Song Lihua suddenly woke up and couldn't help but cry out. What's wrong? Qin Huayu's worried voice suddenly came from outside. It turned out that he had followed Song Lihua all the way here in a daze. Of course, he didn't dare to come in and just stood outside to guard. Hearing Song Lihua's cry, he couldn't help but ask worriedly. Song Lihua blushed and said, It's nothing, idiot. Hurry up and leave. What do you want to do standing outside? Oh? Qin Huayu quickly fled with his tail between his legs. Song Lihua lay in the water, enjoying this extremely rare leisure time. Suddenly, she heard a faint sound. Qin Huayu, why aren't you leaving? Song Lihua said unhappily. However, there was no response. Then, Song Lihua clearly saw that the water in the bathtub began to tremble. Then, she clearly felt that the entire ground was trembling. Enemy attack! Enemy attack! The sharp bone whistle of the flying cavalry came from the sky outside. The soldiers on the city wall desperately rang the bell. Enemy attack! Enemy attack! Demon Dragon Army, assemble quickly. Garrison troops on the front line, assemble quickly. Enemy attack! Enemy attack! The soldiers on the city wall could clearly see. In the distant horizon of the flat land, a black line appeared. A black line that was dozens of miles long. Boom, boom, boom. Then, in the midst of the trembling, countless blacks rushed towards Cloud Heaven City like lightning and a tidal wave. The patrolling flying cavalry in the sky were horrified to discover. The demonic beast mounts that were galloping on the ground were actually larger than the demon dragon and looked even more terrifying and ferocious. Their running speed was not inferior to the demon dragons. This terrifying and huge demonic beast cavalry was unseen and unheard of. It was as if they had emerged from the depths of hell. The black mass spread over dozens of miles and rushed towards Cloud Sky City like a tide. Evil Wei's revenge was here. At this moment, Yang Dingtian was retreating at the fastest speed. Retreating like lightning, he rushed out to the bottom of the sea 30,000 meters in an instant. Then he suddenly flew up into the sky. Then, he used his flying mystic technique and invisibility mystic technique and instantly rushed up to a height of 10,000 meters. But even so, it instantly attracted the attention of the World Club's experts. In an instant, several master stage experts flew up into the sky. And, at this moment, the fuse of the metal ball at the bottom of the sea burned out. Boom! There was a huge explosion. Boom, boom, boom. There was an earth-shattering explosion. An explosion that tore the sky and earth apart. The entire bottom of the sea suddenly exploded with a light that was hundreds of times brighter than the sun. The entire bottom of the sea was violently torn apart. Boom, boom, boom. Endless energy was violently torn apart. The entire surface of the sea suddenly sucked downward. There was half a second of silence. The experts of the World Club were instantly stunned as they looked at the strange sea surface. Boom. Then, the endless sea water surged violently. Huge waves that were hundreds of meters high were suddenly set off. All the ships on the sea were instantly smashed into pieces and turned into ashes in an instant. The shockingly huge waves crazily swept across both sides of the strait. The incomparably huge energy instantly tore the ground on both sides of the strait apart. Cracks that were hundreds of meters deep were fiercely torn apart. A huge crack suddenly appeared on the 100-mile mountain range behind Cloud Sky City. Chapter 474. Yang Dingtian floated in midair and looked at the scene in front of him in disbelief. He only wanted to destroy all the fairies on the surface of the sea. He didn't want to cause too many casualties to the world society. However, the scene in front of him was like hell. Needless to say, the ferries on the surface of the sea were instantly crushed. The people on the ferries were also instantly crushed. What was even more terrifying was that the ground on both sides of the strait was crazily torn apart as the monstrous waves swept across. Suddenly, the densely packed troops on both sides of the strait were washed away without a trace. The huge cracks on the ground were like the devil's mouth that opened up in hell. Countless troops fell one after another and were instantly swallowed without a trace. Of course, the experts of the World Society were only shocked for a moment after the drastic change. Then, before the monstrous waves swept over, they whizzed into the sky like meteors and escaped the disaster in an instant. As for the others, even the winged cavalry patrolling in the sky, it was too late for them to flap their wings and soar into the sky. They were immediately swallowed by the monstrous waves. The most powerful was still the Devil Dragon army. Yang Dingtian, who was high up in the sky, didn't realize that before the disaster happened and before the bottom of the sea exploded, the Devil Dragon mounts had already sensed the great danger. Then, all of them arched their bodies and crouched slightly on the ground. When the bottom of the sea exploded violently, these demonic dragon mounts were like lightning as they quickly ran to both sides. They were really like lightning. One team ran towards the south, while the other team ran towards the north. They ran for their lives. Then, the tsunami swept across both the north and the south, and the ground was violently torn apart. Regardless of whether it was the waves or the ground, their speed was astonishing. However, most of the Devil Dragon army managed to escape. Only a small number of Devil Dragon Knights fell into the cracks or were swallowed by the waves. Some of the Devil Dragon Knights that were swallowed by the cracks actually shot out. The strength of the Devil Dragon army would always make people gasp in amazement. Even the tsunami and the ground couldn't catch up with their speed. The drastic change lasted for a full 15 minutes. The ground stopped shaking and tearing. The waves also retreated back into the sea. Everything returned to silence. Song Shao, the leader of the World Society, floated in the sky and looked at everything on the ground. His heart ached and his body turned cold. Both sides of the strait were completely devastated. It was like hell. On the surface of the sea, corpses were floating everywhere. The ground was littered with corpses. Of the 300,000 to 400,000 legions, how many had died? He had no idea at all and could not calculate it all. But what was certain was that the coastal areas on both sides of the strait were almost completely wiped out. Only top experts could escape by flying. Those who were close to the shore were almost all killed. If it was just an ordinary tsunami, they wouldn't die even if they were hit by the monstrous waves. But the key point was that these waves were highly toxic. 400,000 soldiers. How many were left? Was there still half left? Then, a series of wails came from the ground. On the ground on both sides of the coast, countless people were lying in the mud, screaming and struggling. The toxic seawater had already begun to take effect. Although these people hadn't died yet, after being soaked in the poisonous seawater and having the poisonous seawater enter their bodies, what followed next was hellish torture. First, they couldn't live, and then they couldn't die, and then they would die painfully. Song Shao was in the air, looking at the scene of devastation. His entire body began to tremble violently. Could it be that the heavens want me, Song Shao, and my world society to perish? I don't want to. Song Shao let out a series of angry howls. Then, he spat out a mouthful of blood. Then, his tall body fell directly from the air and fell backward. Leader, father, the surviving experts of the World Society quickly rushed over. At this time, Yang Dingtian didn't look at the hellish battle results at all. Instead, he quickly flew in the direction of Cloud Sky City. All the experts of Cloud Sky City rushed to the top of the city wall at the fastest speed. Of course, they were basically in the houses closest to the city wall. Looking at the enemy cavalry that rushed over like lightning, Song Chunhua and Qin Huayu's expressions suddenly changed. This is the Demon Wolf Demon Cavalry, a demonic beast cavalry from the half-human race. Qin Huayu said. The Demon Wolf Demon Cavalry came from the Dongli grassland of the Likan race. The Lycan race was the most brutal and ferocious race of the half-human race. Of course, Yang Dingtian had encountered a very ferocious Lycan race before. The Lycan race and the Lycan race sounded similar, but in fact, there was a big difference. These two races were considered to be close relatives. But the Lycan race was closer to humans, while the Lycan race was closer to demonic beasts. The Lycan race, regardless of body size, combat strength, bloodthirstiness, or ferocity, surpassed the Lycan race. In the Lycan race, those that were completely in wolf form were used as mounts, and those that were in human form were used as knights. Qin Huayu obviously knew about the evil ways infiltration of the half-human race. He even participated in it. But he didn't expect that the half-human race's army had already infiltrated the human countries. Evil Ways had actually mobilized the Lycan race in the battle against Cloud Sky City. The Demon Dragon Army was the overlord of the human cavalry. The Demon Wolf Demon Cavalry was the overlord of the half-human race's cavalry. Of course, no one knew which of the two was stronger. But there was a consensus on one point, and that was that the half-human race far surpassed humans in terms of strength and speed. Qin Huayu looked at the Demon Wolf Demon Cavalry that pounced at lightning speed. Every demonic wolf mount was also covered in hard armor. Not only that, the armor on their bodies was filled with sharp barbs. This meant that they didn't need to do anything. They could just charge at them at their fastest speed and kill countless of them. They could crush their targets into meat paste. They could clearly see that every Demon Wolf Demon Cavalry was 1 foot taller and 2 feet longer than the Demon Dragon Cavalry. Their limbs were much thicker. What was even more terrifying was that every Demon Wolf Demon Cavalry had fangs that were almost a foot long and as sharp as blades. The Demon Wolf Demon Cavalry was actually bigger, thicker, and more ferocious than the Demon Dragon Cavalry. The most important thing was their speed. When the first person discovered the Demon Wolf Demon Cavalry, they were about 100 miles away from the city wall. But in just 2 to 3 minutes, they had already charged a few dozen miles. Their speed is not inferior to the Demon Dragon Cavalry. They might even be faster, Song Chunhua said. When she said this, everyone on the city wall was shocked and felt a chill run down their spine. They were even bigger, thicker, and more ferocious than the Demon Dragon Cavalry. Moreover, they were even faster. How shocking was this? Evil Ways of revenge were indeed fierce and vicious. They knew that the Demon Dragon Cavalry was the trump card of Cloud Sky City. They were the trump card of Cloud Sky City and the source of their morale. Now, they had sent out the Demon Wolf Demon Cavalry to completely destroy Cloud Sky City's morale. They wanted to push the Demon Dragon Cavalry down from their trump card status. The Demon Wolf Demon Cavalry was getting closer and closer. The earth-shattering sound was getting louder and louder. The trembling of the earth was getting more and more intense. The black mass of Demon Wolf Cavalry was like a dark cloud. In the blink of an eye, they were about to reach them. At this moment, they were only 20 to 30 miles away from Cloud Sky City. How many are there? Qin Huayu asked. Should be 2,000, Song Chunhua said. Only 2,000? Qin Huayu said in surprise. This black mass that blotted out the sky and covered the earth only had 2,000. That's right. There were only 2,000 Demon Wolf Demon Cavalry. However, the size of each Demon Wolf was comparable to 3 war horses. Therefore, even though there were only 2,000 of them, it was as if there was an army of tens of thousands. They were filled with a destructive aura. That's right. Only 2,000. Song Chunhua said, because they know that we only have 2,000 Demon Dragon Cavalry, they also sent out 2,000 Demon Wolf Demon Cavalry. They want us to have a decisive battle with the cavalry in advance. That's right. This wasn't just revenge. It was also a provocation. They were provoking Cloud Sky City's trump card army to see who is the true overlord of the land and who is the true king of cavalry. At this moment, more than 1,800 members of the Demon Dragon Cavalry had gathered behind the city walls. Even though they had just laid down and rested, some of them and some of their mounts were still injured. But at this moment, when they heard the deafening and soul-stirring sounds outside, no matter if it was the Demon Dragon Cavalry or the Demon Dragon mounts, their bodies were filled with a soaring fighting spirit. The demon dragon cavalry was not afraid of any cavalry, even if this cavalry was bigger, thicker, and more ferocious than them. As long as Song Chunhua gave the order, the remaining 1,800 members of the demon dragon cavalry would charge out ferociously and fight to the death with the enemy. Chunhua, do you want the demon dragon cavalry to fight? Qin Huayu said, you have to make a decision. Yang Dingtian is not here. You are the highest commander. Should the demon dragon cavalry fight? If they didn't fight, it would be a coward. The pride of the demon dragon cavalry would be destroyed, and the morale of Cloud Sky City would be extinguished.
Fight!
The incomparably precious 1,800 members of the demon dragon cavalry might be heavily injured or even completely wiped out. Their morale would fall to the bottom and Cloud Sky City would lose their greatest trump card. Song Chunhua immediately fell into a life and death situation. Amidst the rumbling sounds, the demon wolf cavalry got closer and closer. At this moment, even the riders on top could see them clearly. They were indeed werewolves. Although they were humans, their faces and bodies were all in the shape of wolves. The only difference was that they walked upright and had hands. Every werewolf rider was 2.5 meters tall. They were twice the size of the demon dragon cavalry. Their mouths were full of fangs and their bodies were covered in armor. They were completely like wild beasts. Seeing the werewolf riders, the people on top of the city walls shuddered. Their confidence in the demon dragon cavalry had greatly decreased. No matter if it was speed, size, or ferociousness, the demon dragon cavalry was inferior to the enemy's demon wolf cavalry. Song Chunhua, do you want to fight or not? You should make a decision. Qin Huayu shouted. Song Chunhua's face turned cold and shouted, everyone get ready.
Shoot!
Song Chunhua didn't let the demon dragon cavalry fight. Instead, he shot arrows at the demon wolf cavalry. At this moment, the nearly 20,000 archers on the city wall had already drawn their bows and nocked their arrows, even though their bodies were pale and trembling. Although they were trembling, after hearing Song Chunhua's order, they still aimed and shot. Whoosh! Tens of thousands of arrows soared into the sky. It was a black mass. Like a storm, it smashed towards the densely packed demon wolf cavalry. Pa! A series of loud noises and countless sparks burst forth. Countless arrows smashed onto the demon wolf cavalry. However, there was almost no effect. When the arrows hit the armor on the demon wolf cavalry, they only burst forth with sparks and left a shallow pit. They didn't cause any damage to the demon wolves and couldn't even stop them from advancing quickly. The demon wolf cavalry violently approached. They were less than 10 miles away from the city walls. The people in the city could even smell the stench of blood. Song Chunhua clenched his teeth and shouted, Demon Dragon Cavalry attack. Yes. In an instant, the demon dragon cavalry behind the city walls rushed out like lightning. Without opening the city gates, the demon dragon cavalry directly climbed up the city walls. They climbed up the city walls like a tide, and then jumped down the city walls like lightning. They charged towards the demon wolf cavalry like lightning. Song Chunhua abruptly pulled out her sword and leaped, landing on the demonic dragon at the very front. Qin Huayu, Zhu Hongxue, Shimen Lai, and the other experts all jumped out. Formation. Following Song Chunhua's order, the demon dragon cavalry quickly got into formation, still in the sword formation. Song Chunhua, Zhu Hongxue, and Qin Huayu were the sword. The rest of the experts were all the blades.
Kill.
More than 1,000 demon dragon cavalry let out a shocking roar, bursting with fighting spirit. As for the 2,000 demon wolf cavalry, their blood boiled as they let out waves of roars. Immediately after, the 2,000 demon wolf cavalry also began to quickly gather, forming a sword formation. The speed of gathering was completely on par with the demon dragon cavalry. Suddenly, on the huge plains in front of Cloud Sky City, 2 elite cavalry formed 2 terrifying sharp blades, charging as fast as lightning. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. The 2 armies were extremely fast, like lightning, tearing through the air, making bursts of whistling. at a speed of 500 to 600 miles per hour. The short 10 miles stopped in an instant. The two most powerful cavalry kings instantly collided. Boom, boom, boom. An earth-shattering sound. Pa, 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 pa. Mystic fire soaring into the sky. Lightning tearing through the sky. The sharp blades formed by the two elite cavalry fiercely stabbed together. Countless corpses flew into the air. Countless blood spurted out. Demon beast mounts weighing more than 10,000 pounds directly flew into the sky. The most naked collision. The most ferocious collision. The most brutal collision. Whoosh, 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 whoosh. The two saw each other and stabbed at each other with incomparable ferocity. Suddenly, everyone on the city wall was shocked and silent, looking at the craziest, most terrifying, and most violent battle they had ever seen. Very few were injured. Under the collision of incomparably terrifying forces, under the slashing of incomparably terrifying blades. All of them died. All of them were smashed into pieces. After the rapid close combat, after the crazy collision, next there was an even crazier battle, an even more terrifying entanglement. The two ace cavalry armies instantly strangled each other crazily. The two trump-card cavalry armies instantly gathered in a very small space. Crazy eruption, crazy tearing, crazy killing. Demon wolf demon cavalry possessed innate bloodthirstiness, innate brutality, and innate fearlessness. The demon dragon army possessed all human emotions, including fear. However, there was more absolute glory and absolute pride. The huge sword in his hand, the scimitar in his hand. It was even difficult to withstand 4 or 5 slashes and directly shattered. However, the shattered swords and blades were still fiercely stabbing. The shattered shields were instantly thrown aside. The unprotected knights raised their broken swords and broken blades and charged even more crazily. It was not only the knights who were fighting. There were also mounts. The sharp claws and fangs of the demon wolf mounts bit and tore crazily. The sharp claws of the demon dragon mounts pierced crazily and trampled crazily. Fear, fear, pain. Everything was thrown beyond the 9 heavens. What they had was the most bone-piercing and hot-blooded battle. At the same time, on the city wall, there were war drums soaring into the sky. Boom, 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 boom. Bang, 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 bang. The sky was instantly dyed red with blood. After 15 minutes, the battle ended. That's right, it was only 15 minutes. The crazy battle only lasted for 15 minutes. The battlefield within a radius of a few miles was covered in blood, broken limbs, and corpses. Song Chunhua sheathed her sword. She glanced at her comrades beside her and at the corpses all over the ground. The 2,000 demon wolf army had been completely annihilated. They were not injured. They did not escape. They were all dead. The demon dragon army had won again. That's right, the demon wolf demon cavalry was more brutal, thicker, bigger, and faster. However, the demon dragon army was more fearless, more precise, and more tenacious. In fact, at the moment of close combat, even though Song Chunhua, Zhu Hongxue, and Qin Huayu were the tip of the blade, the demon dragon army was still at a disadvantage. That was because the explosive power of the demon wolf army was too terrifying. It was completely destructive. It was like a violent storm. However, as the battle deepened, the combat power of the demon wolf army was constantly decreasing. Their ferocity and brutality were gradually decreasing. Like all wild beasts, they bullied the weak and feared the strong. After feeling the terror of the enemy, the demon wolf demon cavalry had already become timid and wanted to retreat. As for the demon dragon army, they were terrifyingly tenacious. The more they fought, the braver and crazier they became. Therefore, even though the enemy was stronger in an instant, however, the demon dragon army was still the final victor. They proved to the whole world that they were the absolute overlords of the land. After the victory, there were no cheers or celebrations. They only glanced at the corpses all over the ground, regardless of whether they were the enemies or their comrades. Return to the cities, Song Chunhua ordered. The victorious demon dragon army quickly returned to the city like lightning. The people on the city wall saw it clearly. Only half of the demon dragon army returned. That's right, it was only half. The demon dragon army had proved that they were the overlords of the land. They had killed the demon wolf army, which had more explosive power. However, they had also paid close to half of the price. The soldiers were cheering and cheering. Their morale was high. As for the higher-ups of Cloud Sky City, their hearts were trembling. They were heartbroken. They had lost close to half of their trump card army. At this moment, the Poison Extension Strait had completely calmed down. The remaining World Society troops on the North Shore had already retreated. Song Xiao vomited blood and fainted. The experts of World Society were afraid that something unexpected would happen. They immediately ordered the remaining troops to retreat. The countless corpses on the ground, both dead and alive soldiers, were all left behind. Especially on the land of the South Shore, there were countless miserable cries. Countless soldiers were struggling in hellish pain. At this moment, the demon dragon army of World Society, who had successfully escaped, gradually gathered at the seaside. Looking at the corpses of their comrades on the ground, their faces were filled with incomparable pain. "Commander, they have left. Guild leader and the others have all left. They have abandoned us. They have abandoned all our brothers," a demon dragon army officer said as he stepped forward. The fifth commander of the demon dragon army looked at the corpses on the ground with incomparable pain. There was no one left on the North Shore. The higher-ups of World Society and everyone else had already retreated. They had all abandoned them on the South Shore. The strait, which was only 20 miles long, had become an insurmountable moat. "Commander, we shouldn't have come this time," the officer said. "In Cloud Sky City, how many of our brothers are our own? I feel that they are the ones who are right." The fifth commander looked at the wailing brothers on the ground and said, "What do we do now? Are we just going to watch as tens of thousands of our brothers die here? Why don't we go to Cloud Sky City and ask them to save our brothers?" the officer said. "Cloud Sky City," the fifth commander said, "but we were originally going to attack Cloud Sky City. Now, are we going to ask them for help?" "Commander, there is no other choice," the officer said. The commander's gaze froze. "All right. Since World Society has abandoned us, then we will find our own way out. All brothers, go south to Cloud Sky City. Let Cloud Sky City save our brothers." Following the command of the 5th Demon Dragon Army's commander, more than 1,000 Demon Dragon Army warriors immediately rushed towards Cloud Sky City like lightning. Yang Dingtian flew back to Cloud Sky City at his fastest speed. When he was still a few miles away from Cloud Sky City, he could already smell the stench of blood. Something had happened. Something had happened when he left Cloud Sky City. Then, he saw the blood-soaked Demon Dragon Army quickly return to the city. Behind them, within a few miles, there was blood and corpses everywhere. Suddenly, Yang Dingtian's heart twitched. The enemy had indeed come for revenge. And it was when Yang Dingtian left that they came for revenge.
Who knew what army had been dispatched?
But it was definitely an extremely terrifying cavalry army. Although the Demon Dragon Army had once again obtained a great victory, this loss was heart-wrenching. Song Chunhua, Qin Huayu, and the other two were the last to enter the city. They waited until all the Demon Dragon Army brothers had entered the city. At this moment, a sharp whistle suddenly came from the sky. It was an extremely distant and impassioned whistle. Then, a golden light suddenly pierced into Song Chunhua's eyes. Then, the sky darkened. Countless golden eagles screeched as they flew towards Cloud Sky City, covering the sky and covering the sun. The Golden Eagle Army of Middle State's Eagle Nest. The enemy's revenge. It was not over yet. After the Demon Wolf Demon Cavalry Army was completely annihilated, they immediately sent their trump card in the sky, the Golden Eagle Army. Golden dots filled the sky as they whizzed towards Cloud Sky City. Everyone in Cloud Sky City looked at the sky in shock. Their eyes were filled with undisguised shock and even fear. Densely packed enemies came from the sky. They could not help but think, could it be that the final battle had come early? Qin Huayu said to Song Chunhua, "It's the enemy's Golden Eagle Army." Now that you are the highest commander, immediately order our trump card, the Demon Eagle Army, to attack. We will definitely be able to annihilate the enemy's Golden Eagle Army. I sincerely beg you. Chapter 475. At this time, there were no more than 10 people who knew that the Demon Vulture Legion had come to Cloud Sky City. It was an absolute secret. Just like the Demon Dragon Legion was the overlord of the land, the Demon Vulture Legion was the overlord of the air, the absolute overlord. At this time, Qin Huayu saw the sky full of Golden Eagle flying cavalry and immediately ordered Song Chunhua to send out the Demon Vulture Legion. Song Chunhua did not answer. Instead, she jumped directly onto the city wall and looked into the sky. How many Golden Eagle flying cavalry are there? Song Chunhua asked. We are still observing, the soldier in the watchtower said loudly. How many Golden Eagles were there? For a moment, the number was not clear. They could only see the sky in the distance, densely packed and everywhere. About 10 miles, dozens of miles of the sky were all covered by Golden Eagles. Song Chunhua suddenly flew into the air. In a higher and wider field of vision, she began to count. In the end, the result that he came up with completely shocked him. There were a total of about 800 Golden Eagle warriors, less than 1,000. That's right, there were fewer than the Demon Wolf Demon Cavalry just now. But looking at the way they covered the sky, it was really too scary. It gave people the feeling that there were thousands of them, as if they could completely cover the entire Cloud Sky City. In fact, this was not strange at all. In the movies on Earth, how many fighter jets were there in the scene of the largest fighter jet whistling in the sky? Basically, there were no more than a few dozen. If 300 to 400 fighter jets were sent out at once, it would completely cover the sky. And to send out 300 to 400 fighter jets at once, only World War II movies would have it. Japan's sneak attack on Pearl Harbor was already an incomparably huge air operation. But only about 300 fighter jets were sent out, and they were divided into two groups. But in the movie, the sky was densely packed with fighter jets. It was extremely shocking. The size of the World War II fighter jets was not much bigger than the Golden Eagles. Each Golden Eagle was more than 8 meters long and had a wingspan of more than 10 meters. Therefore, the image of 800 Golden Eagles whizzing to a halt in the air was incomparably impactful. It directly gave people the feeling that there were at least tens of thousands of them. But even if there were only 800 of them, it was already the biggest scene that everyone present had ever seen. All the winged cavalry in Cloud Sky City added up, there were only a few hundred of them. Moreover, they had never gathered to fly. The Golden Eagle Legion flew faster. They were approaching Cloud Sky City at a speed of almost 5 kilometers per minute. Chunhua, we have to decide immediately whether or not we should mobilize the Demon Eagle Army. Qin Huayu said, We don't have any power to stop this Golden Condor Legion, even if there are only 800 of them. If they rush into Cloud Heaven City, the consequences will be fatal. Song Chunhua shook her head and said, We can't dispatch the Demon Vulture Army. The enemy has a total of 10,000 Golden Condors, but only 800 have been dispatched, so there is no doubt that this is not only revenge, but also a test. That's right, it was a test. This was despite the fact that the Earth-splitting city had blocked all news and information. Therefore, Evil Ways were not sure if Yang Dingtian had obtained the Demon Vulture Army from Fisher City. Therefore, he sent out 800 Golden Condors to test the waters. 800, what a painful number. Without the Demon Vulture Army, there was no way they could win. It would bring a lot of casualties to Cloud Sky City. However, if he mobilized the Demon Vulture Army, his trump card would be completely exposed. Evil Ways might find a way to deal with the Demon Vulture Army. One had to know that the Demon Vulture Army was Yang Dingtian's last trump card on the day of the decisive battle. It was one of his biggest trump cards. Once exposed in advance, it would be very disadvantageous for the decisive battle in the future. Qin Huayu's brows furrowed painfully as he said, Then we can only watch as these 800 Golden Eagle flying cavalry charge into Cloud Sky City and kill wantonly and rampage. There's no other way. The trump card of the demon vulture army must not be exposed, Song Chunhua said firmly. Then, she waved the flag and shouted, "All flying cavalry, gather and prepare for battle." At this time, all the flying cavalry in Cloud Sky City quickly gathered behind the city wall. In total, there were only a few hundred of them, and there were all kinds of flying cavalry. The knights on the flying cavalry were already looking at death calmly. They clearly knew that this time, they would definitely not return, because the gap between them and the Golden Condor Legion was extremely huge. Song Chunhua, Qin Huayu, Zhu Hongxue, and the other experts had no choice but to jump on their flying mounts again. Then, 300 to 400 flying mounts of Cloud Sky City gathered in the air. Song Chunhua's heart was heavy. She took a deep breath and shouted, "Attack!" Suddenly, the 300 to 400 flying mounts rushed toward the mighty Golden Condor Legion. On the city wall, everyone's hearts were filled with sorrow. Just from the image, the Golden Condor Legion was many times larger than the 300 to 400 flying cavalry in Cloud Sky City. This was because each Golden Condor alone was much larger than the flying mounts in Cloud Sky City. Moreover, no matter how hard Song Chunhua and the others tried to command, the formation of Cloud Sky City's flying troops was still scattered. And the Golden Condor Legion was neat and tidy, sharp and oppressive. At a glance, one could see that the other party had a completely one-sided advantage. As the Golden Condor Legion approached, the hundreds of flying cavalry in Cloud Sky City began to tremble and become afraid. If people were afraid, they could rely on bravery, glory, and passion. However, if the flying mounts were afraid, there was no other way. This was because most of these flying cavalry mounts were not battle mounts. They were just transportation mounts and flying tools. Therefore, the Golden Condor Legion became sharper and more ferocious. Every Golden Condor had an ominous glint in their eyes as they screeched and brandished their claws. The 300 to 400 flying cavalry in Cloud Sky City began to tremble. Then, they completely stopped moving forward and even fled in all directions. At this time, the morale on the city wall of Cloud Sky City was even lower. Song Chunhua tried her best, but was completely unable to control these flying mounts. They had already fled in all directions. Suddenly, it was chaos. The Golden Condor Legion was ecstatic. They accelerated and swooped down, about to start a complete massacre. At this moment, behind Cloud Sky City, there was a beast-like roar. Whoosh, then, there was a whistling sound that tore through the air. A black shadow instantly streaked across the sky. A demon condor. That's right, there was only one. But this demon condor was nearly 20 meters long and had a wingspan of more than 20 meters. It was like a black lightning, roaring and roaring. It ferociously rushed toward the Golden Condor Legion. Long live! Suddenly, there was a wild cheer on the city wall. Although there was only one demon condor, the momentum that rushed out in an instant was too shocking. There was only one demon condor, but it was like an army of thousands of men and horses. It faced the 800 mighty demon condor legion and stabbed fiercely. Moreover, the demon condor did not let out the screech of the flying cavalry. Instead, it roared and howled like a huge beast. This demon condor was, of course, the one that was given to Yang Dingtian by Fisher City. And the rider on the demon condor was, of course, Yang Dingtian himself. This demon condor was originally the most majestic demon condor king in Fisher City. The speed that it rushed out in an instant made Yang Dingtian extremely shocked. At a speed of more than 1,000 miles per hour, it whistled through the air. It was completely like a bolt of lightning. In an instant, its speed was actually twice that of the Golden Condor Legion. In the blink of an eye, this demon condor directly passed through the 300 to 400 flying cavalry in Cloud Sky City and rushed directly toward the 800 golden condors. That momentum was not like Don Quixote hitting the windmill at all, but like a fierce tiger rushing into a flock of sheep. And the 800 golden condor flying cavalry in front, seeing such a huge demon condor lightning flying over, were also shocked and instantly froze in the air for a moment. At this moment, Yang Dingtian rode the Demon Condor King and rushed into the Golden Condor Formation with incomparable ferocity. Swoosh! In an instant, two huge wings suddenly hardened and turned into two incomparably huge sharp blades. Swoosh, 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 all the way across. Blood all the way. The body of the Demon Condor, as it grew older, became more tenacious and terrifying. The whole body of this Demon Condor King was already as hard as iron. After the two wings condensed in an instant, it was completely a deadly flying blade of dozens of meters. Suddenly, the bodies of many golden condors were cut open alive. Golden feathers flew, blood spurted, and fell one after another. The Demon Condor King, with the inertia of flying more than 1,000 miles per hour, directly penetrated the 800 Golden Condor Formation. In an instant, dozens of Golden Condor mounts were killed and injured. Long live, long live! On the city wall, there was a sudden roar, and Qin Huayu and Song Chunhua were instantly shocked. This Demon Condor was so powerful. With one sprint, it killed dozens of Golden Condors. If thousands of Demon Condors charged in unison, how terrible it would be. It was completely unimaginable. After penetrating the Golden Condor Formation, the Demon Condor King howled proudly and fiercely. After flying out for more than 10 miles, it suddenly stopped and turned around, began to accelerate, and continued to rush toward the Golden Condor Formation. At this time, the Golden Condor Legion finally woke up and was extremely angry. The Golden Condor was also an extremely arrogant and ferocious demon beast flying cavalry. Just now, they were stunned by the killing. At this time, it was already soaring anger and fighting spirit. Grandma, you only have one fucking, and you're still so arrogant. We'll tear you apart alive. Suddenly, hundreds of Golden Condors fiercely changed their formation and rushed madly toward the Demon Condor King from all directions. In an instant, the Demon Condor King was surrounded from front to back, left to right, up and down, without the slightest space. While roaring fiercely, they fought madly. Suddenly, a Demon Condor King and hundreds of Golden Condors fiercely fought together. For a time, in this more than 10 miles of airspace, the sound of killing shook the sky, and blood spurted wildly. Countless feathers fell one after another. The Demon Condor King's hard as iron scales fell one after another. There was also a rain of blood all over the sky. The Golden Condor was undoubtedly ferocious. Although the Demon Condor King was extremely powerful, in a short period of time, it was already dripping with blood and scarred. The Golden Condor's beak, the Golden Condor's claws, and the warrior's blade on the Golden Condor's body. It caused countless scars to this more than 20 meters long Demon Condor King. However, the more the Demon Condor King fought, the fiercer it became. At first, it was just a wing slash, directly cutting off the Golden Condor's neck. Later, it directly tore with its claws. As long as the Golden Condor was clawed, in less than half a second, it was directly torn apart and dismembered into 8 pieces. When it reached the most ferocious point, the Golden Condor used its claws, mouth, and wings. In an instant, it was a mess, a pool of blood, and a pile of rotten flesh. It completely ignored the Golden Condor's biting. Its claws grabbed one and tore it apart. Its mouth bit one, biting off the entire Golden Condor's head and crushing it. Its wings swept wildly in the air, forming an incomparably huge fan. Whoosh, 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 whoosh. The huge wings that were as hard as knives became a deadly killing weapon. All the surrounding Golden Condors were cut off and chopped into pieces. Yang Dingtian clearly felt that this Demon Condor King also had Xian Qi, and it had the Xian Qi cultivation of a high-level martial venerable. It was not a high-level martial venerable of a human, but a high-level martial venerable of a large demon beast. It condensed Xian Qi on its wings, and suddenly there was nothing it could not conquer. Suddenly, countless Golden Condors were minced into pieces. Suddenly, Song Chunhua and Qin Huayu were completely stunned. Was this still a flying mount? This was completely a top expert, a killing machine. For a time, hundreds of golden condors were also frightened by the killing and retreated. This golden condor's whirlwind slash was too amazing. Hundreds of golden eagles had been crushed into mincemeat. Of course, only Yang Dingtian knew that once the whirlwind slash ended, the demon condor king's Xian Qi would be completely exhausted. Moreover, at this time, the demon condor king's wings were already scarred. Once the Xian Qi was exhausted, the demon condor king would basically lose its fighting strength. Therefore, it used up all its Xian Qi and used the shocking whirlwind slash, directly killing hundreds of golden condors. Its purpose was to scare the other party away, so that they would not dare to approach and escape. In fact, it was about to succeed. These golden condors, each one of them was incomparably terrified. They completely ignored the shouts of the knights above and turned to flee. Hundreds of golden condors were actually scared out of their wits by the demon condor king. It had to be said that this result was completely unexpected by Yang Dingtian. It was too heaven-defying. He knew that the demon condor king was powerful, but he had never thought that it would be so powerful. It was absolutely the overlord of the sky, and there was no opponent in the sky. When its Xian Qi was exhausted, the demon condor king stopped the whirlwind slash. But it was still majestic, like a king, floating in the air, flapping its huge wings, looking down at these golden condors with disdain. Its eyes revealed a terrifying murderous aura and a king's domineering aura. Damn, this demon condor king also knew how to play psychological warfare. It obviously had no Xian Qi left, but instead of running away, it still wanted to scare people here. Sure enough, these golden condors immediately turned around and fled. Then, Yang Dingtian and the others were about to welcome the most unexpected ending. Just one demon condor king scared off hundreds of golden condors. Whoosh! Whoosh! Suddenly, a strange whistle came from the golden condor army, releasing a strange note energy. Suddenly, the fleeing golden condors turned around and gathered around the whistle. This whistle could directly control the golden condors, making them completely forget their fear. Hundreds of golden condors gathered again. The demon condor king's empty fort strategy had been seen through. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Then, hundreds of golden condor warriors once again ferociously rushed towards the demon condor king. Yang Dingtian's heart went cold. At this time, the demon condor king had exhausted its Xian Qi, and it couldn't even withstand the killing of 10 golden condors, let alone hundreds of them. Almost instantly, hundreds of golden condors surrounded the demon condor king again. Then, under the silent command, hundreds of golden condors, from all directions, madly attacked. All of a sudden, the demon condor king was about to be completely smashed. Whoosh! Almost instantly, hundreds of golden condors swallowed the demon condor king and drowned it. At the same time, the sky suddenly darkened. The sun disappeared, and terrible black clouds instantly shrouded the sky. In the horrified cries, the demon condor king was instantly swallowed up. Everyone's heart went cold, waiting for the demon condor king to be smashed to pieces. Pa! Suddenly, an incomparably huge bolt of lightning shot out. It was Yang Dingtian, who exhausted his Xian Qi and used the demon sky split. Suddenly, a lightning of hundreds of feet slammed out. Pa! Suddenly, all the golden condors around were shocked and flew away in shock. Feathers fell one after another. Dozens of golden condors were charred black. 4 or 5 golden condors fell directly from the sky and were electrocuted to death. Yang Dingtian was shocked. His demon sky split lightning was completely displayed to the extreme. It can be said that this lightning was enough to kill more than a dozen ordinary martial honorable experts. And these golden condors, without a doubt, did not have the cultivation of martial ancestor. However, only 4 or 5 were electrocuted to death. It can be seen how different demon beasts and human beings were. The defensive power and lethality of demon beasts were much stronger than human warriors of the same level. Even with Yang Dingtian's cultivation, He may only be able to kill dozens of golden condors before completely exhausting all of his xian qi. The golden condors that were scared away by the lightning gathered again and once again surrounded the demon condor king. Then, they fiercely charged and converged. Yang Dingtian again used the demon sky split. A huge lightning bolt struck out. This time, only 3 golden condors were electrocuted and fell down. Even though they were scared away again, these golden eagles gathered together even faster and surrounded him again. At this time, Yang Dingtian's xian qi could only release the demon sky split lightning twice at most, and each time was weaker than the previous. However, the golden condors had already seen through the demon condor king's real situation and were about to kill the demon condor king. Hundreds of golden condors gathered again and rushed for the 3rd time. Squeak! At this time, the hundreds of winged cavalry in the periphery of Cloud Sky's city seemed to have been greatly infected. They suddenly forgot their fear and were not afraid of death at all. They ferociously rushed towards the golden condor army. Song Chunhua suddenly shot out a xian fire and a lightning bolt. In an instant, 7 or 8 golden condors were directly charred black and fell to the ground. Qin Huayu's xian fire also directly blasted 7 golden condors into charcoal. Zhu Hongxue was slightly worse. The xian fire blasted 5 to death. Suddenly, the 3 experts desperately used their xian qi and xian fire to attack the golden condor army. Although they were majestic, however, it made Yang Dingtian and the others realize the fragility of humans in front of demonic beasts. A master-level expert could only kill dozens of golden condor demonic beasts that were not even at the martial ancestor level. In this kind of crazy release of xian fire and lightning, countless golden condors fell one after another. In the air, feathers were flying everywhere. Half a quarter of an hour later, only half of the 800 golden condors were left. 400 of them were killed alive. Among them, 200 were killed by the demon condor king alone. Yang Dingtian, Qin Huayu, Zhu Hongxue, and Song Chunhua had only managed to kill around 200 of them. At this time, the crazy killing did not scare the golden condors away. Instead, it made them ferocious, and their eyes turned red. After the few people's xian qi was exhausted, they were completely passive in an instant. Next, it was a completely one-sided massacre. The ferocious golden condor army carried out a crazy massacre on the flying mounts of Cloud Sky City. In an instant, the flying mounts fell one after another, and all of them died without a complete corpse. They were directly torn into pieces. Blood splattered everywhere, and meat paste splattered everywhere. The killing in the air had reached the most tragic scene. In less than 3 minutes, all the flying mounts of Cloud Sky City would be slaughtered clean. Although these flying mounts were aroused at this time, their fighting strength was completely different from the golden condors. After experiencing such a terrifying massacre, these flying mounts all fled in terror. Next, not only the demon condor king was going to die. Even Yang Dingtian and the others were in fatal danger, because their xian qi was almost completely exhausted. At this time, the 4 of them were all on the demon condor king. As for the demon condor king, his xian qi was exhausted, and he was scarred. He was already weak. Next, facing the siege of the 400 golden condor army, they could not resist or even escape. Unexpectedly, in this battle, not only the demon condor king could not be saved, but Yang Dingtian was also in danger. The other party had only dispatched 800 golden condors. The final battle had not yet come. Hundreds of thousands of troops, millions of troops, and the Ning clan legion had not yet arrived. At this time, the 400 golden condor army suddenly retreated a few thousand meters and began to set up a formation. Every golden condor had blood-red eyes. They were going to carry out the last massacre, the last attack. This attack, they not only wanted to destroy the demon condor king, but also tear all these humans into pieces. After the formation was completed, hundreds of golden condors, with a sharp cry, madly rushed toward Yang Dingtian and the others, toward the demon condor king. At this time, The demon Condor King, whose xian-qi had been exhausted, was under Yang Dingtian. In its eyes, a domineering aura suddenly surged, and an incomparably proud gaze surged. Immediately afterward, it shook violently and bounced hard. Directly, Yang Dingtian and the others were directly bounced out. Then, it alone, with incomparable pride and determination, rushed toward the hundreds of golden condors. The demon Condor King, even if it exhausted its xian-qi, even if it was scarred, even if it was dying, it would never retreat. It would fight to the end, fight to the last drop of blood. Suddenly, Yang Dingtian and the others saw an incomparably tragic scene. The demon Vulture King, who was on the verge of death, rushed towards the 400 golden eagles alone. This time it was the real Don Quixote. Yang Dingtian's heart shook violently, and tears fell like rain. He suddenly flew into the air, pulled out his sword, and exhausted the last of his xian-qi. Boom! Using the last demon sky split. In an instant, a long bolt of lightning slammed down. This bolt of lightning was smaller and thinner than Yang Dingtian's previous demon sky split lightning. However, it was very long, straight to the sky, rushing directly into the clouds. After using the demon sky split, Yang Dingtian's xian-qi was completely exhausted, and he fell directly from the sky. At this time, the lonely demon Condor King was about to rush together with the 400 golden condors, and it was about to be completely crushed. Pa! Suddenly, from the dark clouds in the sky, an earth-shattering bolt of lightning slammed down.
It was as thick as a mountain.
Lightning that spanned hundreds of miles. It slammed down. The sky and earth changed color, and light burst out, as if the end of the world.
Boom!
The incomparably terrifying lightning, as if the sky and earth had changed dramatically, slammed into the golden condor army. Pa! In an instant, the 400 golden condors suddenly froze. Then, all of them turned into charcoal, and all of them turned into ashes. In an instant, they turned into countless ashes and fell down one after another. At the same time, the demon Condor King also fell from the sky. Everyone on the city wall, everyone in Cloud Sky City, seeing the scene, their bodies trembled, and tears filled their eyes. They looked at the scene in disbelief. At the moment of despair, when the demon Condor King was about to be destroyed, when Yang Dingtian was about to be defeated, Yang Dingtian's demon sky split the terrifying dark clouds in the sky, triggering earth-shattering lightning. In an instant, all of the Golden Condor army were destroyed, and all of them were smashed into pieces and turned into ashes. This was Yang Dingtian, who used the power of heaven and earth to destroy the 400 Golden Condor army. Under the leadership of Yang Dingtian, Cloud Sky City reversed again, once again creating an impossible victory and an impossible miracle. After a long silence, on Cloud Sky City, there was a tsunami-like roar. Long live, long live, long live Yang Dingtian. Long live city, Lord Yang Dingtian. Yang Dingtian was caught by Song Chunhua in the air. Qin Huayu and Zhu Hongxue desperately flew to catch the falling demon Condor King. Yang Dingtian looked at the demon Condor King and shouted in his heart, "Long live the demon Condor King." At the same time, in the northern mountain range of Cloud Sky City, countless black shadows suddenly appeared. Like lightning, they rushed to the vulnerable and defenseless Cloud Sky City on the back. In the highest tower of Cloud Sky City, the bell suddenly rang and roared. Enemy attack! Enemy attack! In the north, more than 1,000 black lightning bolts in the mountain range, as if they were walking on flat ground, stopped instantly. Chapter 476. At this moment, two people were standing on top of a mountain a few hundred miles south of Cloud Sky City. They had been watching the two fierce and tragic battles that had taken place in front of Cloud Sky City. Young Master's revenge has failed. Cloud Sky City's morale has reached the sky. The man in black sighed. Just a little bit more, just a little bit more. Who would have thought that Yang Dingtian could actually trigger the lightning in the sky and kill the last 400 golden eagles? Otherwise, the 400 golden eagles would have killed at least tens of thousands of people and taught Cloud Sky City a painful lesson. Yes, he triggered the lightning. The man in white said, "This Yongding Tian is really shocking." The scene just now not only stunned everyone in Cloud Sky City, but the two observers of evil ways were also completely shocked. Yang Dingtian's demon sky splitter triggered the lightning in the sky and turned hundreds of golden eagles into ashes. That scene was really shocking. However, even though there are regrets, we still got what we wanted. The man in white said, although the battle just now was shocking and intense, it also proved two things. First, Yang Dingtian did go to Fisher City to ask for help. Second, Cloud Sky City didn't get the Demon Vulture army. Fisher City only gave Yang Dingtian a Demon Vulture as a token. That's right. The man in black nodded. Okay, we can go and reply to the Lord. Cloud Sky City doesn't have the Demon Vulture army and only has about 1,000 Demon Dragon army left. They are no match for our Demon army. Even if the East, West, and North armies don't arrive in time on the day of the final battle, we can easily crush Cloud Sky City with just our Demon army. After that, the two of them flew into the sky and headed south. Yang Dingtian, the Demon Vulture King, is dying, Zhu Hongxue said. In this battle, the Demon Vulture King's strength and pride touched Zhu Hongxue the most. He even felt that he was a little as arrogant as the Demon Vulture King. Even if he had to become the enemy of the entire Yinyang school, he would still fight evil to the end. Qin Huaiyu and Zhu Hongxue desperately supported the Demon Vulture King, preventing it from falling to its death. But at this time, the Demon Vulture King was on the verge of death. He was only half a step away from death. With Song Chuanhua's help, Yang Dingtian quickly arrived in front of the Demon Vulture King. After landing, the Demon Vulture King looked even bigger. Just its head alone was bigger and taller than Yang Dingtian's body. However, the wounds on its body were a ghastly sight. 90% of his body had been torn apart. There were at least 10,000 wounds all over his body. The Golden Eagle's claws, beak, and the Golden Eagle warrior's sword all brought fatal injuries to it. The scales, which were originally as hard as iron, were almost completely peeled off. The scars on his body were only a few inches long. It was so deep that it went straight into the bones. Even the internal organs in the stomach could be seen. As for the two wings that possessed boundless destructive power, they were now filled with countless cracks. The sharp bone spurs at the edge of the wings were completely shattered. The wounds all over his body made Yang Dingtian and the others tremble when they saw it. If a person had suffered such serious injuries, they would have died many times over. But the Demon Vulture King was still holding on to its last trace of life. It wanted to look at the sky in peace and leave quietly, because they would always belong to the sky. Yang Dingtian reached out and wanted to stroke the Demon Vulture King's head. The dying Demon Vulture King shrank back slightly, but did not let Yang Dingtian touch it. When it was in good condition and strong, it did not care about Yang Dingtian's touch. But now that it was weak and about to die, it felt that this touch was sympathy. As the Demon Vulture King, it could not stand sympathy. Even if it died, it would die with pride. "Buddy, I won't let you die." Yang Dingtian smiled. Then he took out a handful of holy water pills from his arms. Qin Huaiyu was stunned. At that time, from the secret realm, Yang Dingtian stole a lot of holy water. But after using it on a large scale, there was not much left now. The Demon Vulture King's body was huge. It was not something that could be saved with 1 or 2 or 3 pills. Yang Dingtian placed the holy water pills in front of the Demon Vulture King. The Demon Vulture King looked at Yang Dingtian slightly, as if hesitating. Then, it stretched out its tongue and rolled all the pills into its stomach. A moment later, the Demon Vulture King's body shook and looked at Yang Dingtian in disbelief. "Qin Huaiyu, Zhu Hongxue, you guys carry the Demon Vulture King back to the city," Yang Dingtian said. "Yes," Qin Huaiyu said. At this moment, suddenly, a winged cavalry quickly flew from the direction of Cloud Sky City. As he flew, he blew the golden whistle and shouted, "Enemy attack! Enemy attack!" Then, Yang Dingtian quickly saw a string of beacons igniting quickly. Song Chunhua and the others' faces changed completely. This meant that there was a place in Cloud Sky City. Cloud Sky City was a place with almost no defenses. There were only a few dozen winged cavalry. Of course, there were also hundreds of young disciples of Cloud Sky City. The rest of the people were almost all sent to the city wall. At this time, Cloud Sky City was extremely fragile, and Cloud Sky Castle was more than 200 miles away from the city wall. Although the beacons were fast, it took at least a few minutes for the message to reach 200 miles away. The enemy might have already rushed into Cloud Sky City. Yang Dingtian and Song Chunhua looked at each other, their eyes revealing a look of horror. Cloud Sky City had just experienced 2 bloody and fierce battles and had achieved brilliant victories. But it could not withstand a third battle. Especially the battle that happened in Cloud Sky City, the consequences were unimaginable. Summoning the demonic dragon mount. Song Chunhua was slightly stunned. There was only half of the demonic dragon mount left, and it was full of scars. Now it needed to recuperate. If they fought again, there might be a danger of being completely wiped out or even more injuries on top of injuries. However, Song Chunhua only hesitated for a moment, then nodded and said, "Yes." Qin Huayu came over and said, "Sect Master, do you want to send the 3rd Demonic Dragon Regiment?" The Demonic Dragon Army under Yang Dingtian had a total of more than 3,000 people and was divided into 3 regiments. The 1st and 2nd regiments were the 2,000 demonic dragon warriors that Yang Dingtian had sent to attack Sky Thunder City. Last night, they had lost more than 100 people. Today, after fighting with the 2,000 demon wolf demonic knights, they had lost nearly half of their numbers. Now, there were only 1,000 left. The 3rd regiment was sent to the Abyss Castle in the west to prevent the Western Army from passing through. "No, it's too far. We won't make it in time. Send the 1st and 2nd regiments," Yang Dingtian said. "Yes," Qin Huayu shouted. After a while, Yang Dingtian and the others, who had almost exhausted their celestial qi, led the 1,000-injured demonic dragon army and quickly rushed into Cloud Sky City. Along the way, blood dripped from their bodies. Even the demonic dragon army's speed was much slower. Behind the demonic dragon army, a total of 5,000 cavalrymen followed closely and quickly rushed towards Cloud Sky City. After nearly an hour, Yang Dingtian and the others arrived at Cloud Sky Castle. The entire Cloud Sky Castle was completely surrounded. More than 1,000 demonic dragon army soldiers had completely surrounded Cloud Sky City. Yang Dingtian was shocked. Previously, at the Poison Extension Strait, when the earthquake and tsunami happened, Yang Dingtian was high up in the sky and saw many demonic dragon army soldiers escaping the earthquake and tsunami at lightning speed. However, Yang Dingtian could clearly see that the demonic dragon army on the southern shore of the Poison Extension Strait were all rushing towards the west. It looked like they were going to take a detour around the land bridge and pass through the northwest Qin City territory to return to the World Guild. Why did they suddenly surround Cloud Sky City? At this moment, within Cloud Sky City, regardless of whether they were old or young, they were all equipped and ready for battle. Yang Dingtian saw Madame Shimin, Yan Yan, and Qin Jiaojiao standing at the top of Cloud Sky City with their swords in hand. The remaining young disciples of Cloud Sky City all stood on top of the city walls and prepared for battle. When Yang Dingtian led 1,000 demonic dragon army soldiers to arrive, the World Guild demonic dragon army that surrounded the city saw Yang Dingtian's wounded former comrade. Their gazes trembled and their expressions became complicated. When Song Chunhua saw that it was the World Guild demonic dragon army that surrounded the city, she immediately felt relieved. She then became angry and said, "What are you doing? Not only are you helping the tyrant, but you are also attacking the old, young, and women?" The commander of the World Guild's 5th demonic dragon army avoided Song Chunhua's gaze unnaturally. The demonic dragon army had a total of 5 regiments and 3 reserve regiments. The commander of the 5th regiment had the most complicated relationship with Song Lihua. He was the son of the World Guild's most powerful duke. He did not choose to inherit his father's territory. Instead, because he was infatuated with Song Lihua, he entered the World Guild and became the commander of the demonic dragon army. He was not a direct descendant of Song Chunhua. Because of his relationship with Song Lihua, he was quite hostile towards Yang Dingtian. City Lord Yang Dingtian, come out and speak, the commander of the demonic dragon army's 5th regiment shouted. Yang Dingtian rode on the demonic dragon mount. His face was pale and his celestial qi was exhausted. He looked a little weak and said, "If you have anything to say, please say it." The 5th commander said, "At this moment, 500 miles north of Cloud Heaven City, on the southern shore of the Poison Strait, tens of thousands of our brothers have been poisoned by the seawater. They are on the verge of death. You must immediately send people to save them. Otherwise, I will immediately attack the city and perish together with you." The 5th commander could lose in battle, but not in battle. Even if it was to save people, he had to use a threatening attitude. Yang Dingtian smiled and said, "All right, I promise you." He did not expect Yang Dingtian to agree so readily. The 5th commander was stunned. He originally wanted to say more threatening words, but he immediately swallowed them back down. "Chunhua, prepare big baskets. The ones we will use to transport the injured in the future. The more, the better," Yang Dingtian said. "Yes,"
Song Chunhua said.
In just 2 hours, tens of thousands of baskets appeared in the plaza in front of Cloud Heaven City. Yang Dingtian said, "Every demonic dragon, take 5 baskets and rush to the Poison Strait at the fastest speed."
"Yes."
The 1,000-over demonic dragon army behind Yang Dingtian shouted. Almost every one of them was injured and needed to recuperate. "And all of you, go together," Yang Dingtian said to the 5th commander. "Yes, oh, okay," the 5th commander said. After a while, the 2,500 demonic dragon army rushed towards the back of the mountain. Facing the steep hills, it was as if they were walking on flat ground. They quickly rushed towards the Poison Strait in the north. "Yang Dingtian, we will remember that you agreed to save our brothers. However, don't even think about taking over our 1,500 demonic dragon army. We still have to return to the World Society," the 5th commander said. You think too much," Yang Dingtian said calmly. 2 hours later, Yang Dingtian and the 2,500 demonic dragon army arrived at the Poison Strait. Although he had seen it from the sky, when he was here, Yang Dingtian still felt as if he was in hell. At this moment, the poisonous green seawater had all dried up. It had either seeped into the ground or flowed back into the sea. The ground within 100 miles was filled with deep and terrifying cracks. Of course, there were even more corpses. It was really densely packed. There were too many to count. At this moment, it had been 4 to 6 hours since the 5th group of the demonic dragon army left. The World Society warriors who were originally wailing and struggling had now become corpses. Countless corpses were strewn all over the cracked ground. Yang Dingtian felt a wave of sadness in his heart. That's right. Seeing so many lives destroyed, he felt sad. However, he didn't feel any guilt. These people were indirectly killed by him alone. He felt sad, but he definitely didn't feel guilty. Even if he was given 10 more chances, he would still do the same. Moreover, to be honest, even if Yang Dingtian didn't detonate the crystal at the bottom of the sea, in at most 2 to 3 days, the bottom of the sea would still explode. There would be earthquakes and tsunamis. By then, most of the World Society army would have crossed the sea and reached the southern shore. At that time, even more people would die. It wouldn't be tens of thousands, but 300 to 400,000. The demonic dragon army's 5th group of demonic dragon army dismounted from their mounts and wept silently. The 1,000 demonic dragon army members that Yang Dingtian brought were sad because these people who died were also their brothers. However, they rode on their mounts and didn't move at all. The 5th group's commander rushed to the 1st group and the 2nd group's commander and shouted, "These people were once your brothers. Now that they are dead, don't you even have a drop of tear? Can't you even get off your mounts and observe a moment of silence?" The first group's commander and the second group's commander remained on their mounts and said indifferently, "Apologies." Before they died, they were still our enemies. If I remember correctly, you guys crossed the sea to attack Cloud Heaven City. Shedding tears for the enemy? We aren't that naive. The second group's commander said coldly, "Our first and second groups just lost half of our brothers, but we didn't shed a single tear." It seems like the demonic dragon army that was brought up by the aristocrats is really pretentious. The demonic dragon army had 5 commanders. The most elite first, second, and third group's commanders were all commoners. They relied on crazy cultivation, battle achievements, and cultivation to become commanders. The fourth and fifth groups were the direct disciples of the world society and the son of the most powerful marquis. Therefore, the fourth and fifth groups were also ridiculed as aristocratic groups. They were looked down upon by the first, second, and third groups. Therefore, only the first, second, and third groups followed Yang Dingtian to the south. Immediately, the fifth group's commander trembled in anger. Yang Dingtian looked at the corpses on the ground and ordered indifferently, "Everyone, get off your mounts and check every single one of them. Those who are dead, gather them and burn them. Those who are alive, put them into baskets and bring them back to Cloud Heaven City for treatment." Yes. 8,000 demonic dragon warriors got off their mounts and began to carry out Yang Dingtian's orders. They carefully checked if each person was dead or alive, but they definitely didn't touch their bodies directly. 4 hours later, Yang Dingtian received the report. A total of 57,000 corpses were found. 19,000 injured people. Yang Dingtian's eyes suddenly narrowed. There were a total of 150,000 people who crossed the Poison Strait. At this moment, there were only 70 to 80,000 people who were alive and dead. In other words, half of them had completely disappeared. Of course, this so-called disappearance was only the disappearance of the dead. They fell into the crevices or were swept into the sea. More than 10,000 people who were still alive were placed in 10,000 huge baskets and hung on the demonic dragon mounts. Every demonic dragon mount had to carry 4 baskets. Including the riders, they carried 9 people in total, which was more than 1,000 pounds. However, this bit of weight was nothing to the demonic dragon. The demonic dragon's own body was a few thousand pounds. The weight it could carry was even more than its own weight. "Return to the city," Yang Dingtian ordered. 2,500 demonic dragon warriors carried nearly 20,000 injured people and quickly rushed back to Cloud Heaven City. He waited for everyone to leave. A few hundred meters away, a fire arrow suddenly shot over and directly hit the huge pile of corpses. In an instant, the mountain-like pile of corpses burned fiercely. Flames shot up to the sky, and thick smoke rose. All the demonic dragon warriors carried the injured and quickly ran south. No one turned back. The fourth and fifth groups of the demonic dragon army wanted to turn back. However, when they saw the cold faces of the first and second groups, they gritted their teeth and ran with their heads down. After being poisoned by the Ecstasy River, it wasn't easy to save them. It wasn't difficult to save them. At least Cloud Heaven City had enough medicinal herbs. Of course, most of them were brought over by Qin Mingli. However, these medicinal herbs were very precious. Cloud Heaven City was about to face a great war, and there might be huge casualties. The most important thing was whether it was worth it to use medicinal herbs and elixirs on these former enemies. In the end, it was Yang Dingtian who made the decision. Save them. Then the medical team that Cloud Heaven City had already organized, a few thousand people, began to quickly save them. Then countless elixirs, medicinal herbs, and treasures were used up like water. Sect Master. When Yang Dingtian closed his eyes to recover his celestial qi, Qin Huayu walked in. "Yes, what's the matter?" Yang Dingtian asked. Qin Huayu said, "Our demonic dragon army has suffered huge losses. Now, the fifth group of World Society's demonic dragon army is all here. Half of the fourth group is also here. There are a total of 1,500 demonic dragon warriors, which is just enough to make up for our losses." I have understood that these 1,500 demonic dragon warriors are full of respect and worship for the first and second groups. It is completely possible for them to be persuaded to join us. The only obstacle is the noble officers led by the fifth commander, Lu Hengxi. As long as we eliminate them or put them under house arrest, we can take these 1,500 demonic dragon army soldiers into our nightmare. Yang Dingtian said, I once understood this Lu Hengxi. He is the son of the World Society's most powerful duke. Because he was infatuated with Song Lihua, he gave up his inheritance rights and came to the World Society to be a mere commander of the demonic dragon army. This person is proud, conceited, and has a high temperament. I also heard that when the first, second, and third groups came together to discuss and decided that the World Society would follow me to the south. Because we didn't look for him, Lu Hengxi, he flew into a rage and felt that he was humiliated. Qin Huayu said, Then you mean to let Lihua persuade him? When did you use this honorific? Yang Dingtian said with a smile, As long as Song Lihua is mentioned, your brain will instantly short-circuit. When did I want to let Song Lihua use a honey trap? This isn't just an insult to Lihua, it is also an insult to Lu Hengxi. I believe in this person. Afterward, Yang Dingtian continued to close his eyes and recover his mystic qi. 4 hours later, the fifth commander of the World Society's demonic dragon army requested to see Yang Dingtian. I am here to bid farewell. Lu Hengxi said straightforwardly.
Oh.
All right, if you need anything, go and find Mu Lianqing. Yang Dingtian said, After the injured members of the World Society are treated, I will let them leave. Lu Hengxi couldn't hold it in anymore and said, Are you not going to keep us? Are you so hypocritical? You obviously want to keep us, but you want to let us leave. I saw through you immediately. Yang Dingtian said with a smile, I am not scheming. Many people can easily see through me. Of course, I want to keep you, but I respect all of your choices. Someone even advised me to let Song Lihua persuade you and guarantee that you will stay, right? Immediately, Lu Hengxi's face flushed red and became very unnatural. Song Lihua was his Achilles heel. Once this name was mentioned, all of his aura would vanish completely. Have you gone to see Song Lihua? Yang Dingtian asked. Lu Hengxi nodded even more unnaturally. He had secretly gone to see her, even though Song Lihua had just taken a bath and regained some of her human appearance. That haggard and emaciated appearance had given Lu Hengxi an incomparable shock. Where did the fairies of the past go? Where did the beauties of the past go? However, Lu Hengxi wasn't relieved. He was shocked in his heart. What kind of power could cause Song Lihua to become like this? You can go and see her, but don't think too much. She is already Qin Huayu's fiancé. The two of them are very loving. Yang Dingtian said with a smile, You also know Song Lihua. Once she has decided, no one can change her mind. You have no hope. Lu Hengxi's face darkened and he said, I know. Then Lu Hengxi said, That's right. As long as Song Lihua comes and says a word to me, even without saying, as long as she looks at me, I will stay. Why don't you let her come? Don't you want my 1,500 demon dragon warriors? Of course I want them. I want them even in my dreams. Yang Dingtian said, But I want to stay. I want to stay, wholeheartedly. My heart is not with Cloud Sky City, not with justice. Not to mention 1,500, even if it's 15,000 demon dragon warriors, I don't want them. I told Qin Huayu that if I let Song Lihua use a honey trap, not only would it be an insult to her, but it would also be an insult to you. I respect you and believe in you, so I won't humiliate you, even if you leave because of this. Lu Hengxi's body trembled slightly. Then he took off his helmet and knelt down on one knee. This was, of course, an expression of loyalty. However, he was conceited and prideful. When one knee touched the ground, he immediately got up and turned to leave. He promised to stay and pledge his loyalty to the justice that Yang Dingtian represented. But he didn't want to stay for another minute. He felt that this was very awkward and made him feel very unnatural. Yang Dingtian smiled helplessly and eagerly. She was also a proud and innocent person. In the following time, an incomparably busy scene appeared on the cloud sky city wall again. Countless people were frantically building the last section of the city wall. Of course, at this time, the city wall was only a dozen miles long. There was no need for tens of millions of people. So, the remaining hundreds of thousands of people joined the reinforcement project of the city wall. Yang Dingtian had already seen that the high mountains on both sides of the city wall had been cut in half. Countless huge stone strips had been chopped down to build the city wall. This was also necessary. The mountains on both sides could be used as natural city walls. The next day, Yang Dingtian and the others had all recovered their xianqi. What surprised him the most was that the Demon Vulture King's recovery speed was too amazing. With an astonishing amount of holy water elixir, the terrible injuries on its body had gradually healed, although it was still shocking. But there were no more deep scars to the bone. Of course, its combat strength had not fully recovered, only less than half. But Yang Dingtian still decided to ride it into battle. According to the report of the scouts, hundreds of suspension bridges had already been built in the abyss in the west. The hundreds of thousands of troops of the Western Army had already gathered 100 miles west of the abyss. They would soon cross the bridge and enter the territory of Cloud Sky City. Now, Yang Dingtian was going to lead the Demon Dragon Army to destroy these pontoon bridges. As the ace of the Air Force, the Demon Vulture King was still indispensable. But if nothing unexpected happened, this battle would be very, very easy. The cunning Qin Wanqiu would definitely cooperate and put on a good show. After destroying the pontoon bridges, Yang Dingtian's strategy of attacking 3 and letting go of 1 would be completed successfully. The Eastern Army, led by the Divine Weapons Villa, was stuck in Sky Thunder City and couldn't arrive in time. The World Society in the north was wiped out by the tsunami. Song Shao vomited blood and fainted. It was even more impossible for them to go south. The Western Army was led by the cunning Qin Wanqiu. As long as Yang Dingtian destroyed the pontoon bridges, the hundreds of thousands of troops would have a reason to not cross over. The only ones that could reach the city were the hundreds of thousands of troops of the Southern Army. These hundreds of thousands of troops were, of course, the most powerful of the 4 armies. But Yang Dingtian now had 3,500 troops of the Demon Dragon Army, 1,000 troops of the Demon Vulture Army, and an astronomical number of secret weapons. He also had the highest secret trump card, Dongfang Minmi. Yang Dingtian still had great confidence in this battle. It could be said that this battle was definitely a battle that would shock the world for Yang Dingtian and Cloud Sky City. It was a battle that would completely change the power of the Tiando League and the confidence of the chaotic world. All of Yang Dingtian's efforts and sacrifices during this period of time were all for this battle. The first battle between good and evil. It could also be considered the final battle between Yang Dingtian, Ning Wuming, and Qin Shiqi. After destroying the pontoon bridges in the abyss and stopping the 500,000 troops of the Western Army from advancing east, the strategy of attacking 3 and letting go of 1 would be completed. In this battle, Yang Dingtian had already won half of it. Just as Yang Dingtian was riding on the Demon Vulture Dynasty and flying towards the west, suddenly, a graceful figure flew over from the western sky.
It was a floating ray.
On top of it was a beautiful pregnant woman with a big belly. Yang Dingtian couldn't help but be angry and laugh at the same time. You damned woman. You still know to come back. Chapter 477. This time, Yang Dingtian only brought Qin Huayu and Zhu Hongxue to destroy the suspension bridge. Song Chunhua stayed behind to guard Cloud Sky City. At this moment, Yang Dingtian and Yao Rao were getting closer and closer. To be honest, this was Yang Dingtian's first time seeing Yao Rao in half a year. Ever since this woman helped Yang Dingtian make Qin Huayu yield, she had never appeared in front of Yang Dingtian again. Not only did she not treat Yang Dingtian as her man, but she also did not treat herself as a member of Cloud Sky City. Of course, Yang Dingtian's union with her was also very special. Even though they had a very intimate relationship and had a child together, the relationship between the two of them was more beneficial than emotional. Even though this woman was pregnant, other than her belly, the rest of her body was still extremely enchanting and gorgeous. In fact, her already gorgeous face was even more seductive now. Her beauty made people not dare to look straight at her. Vixen, as expected of a vixen. If Qinji saw this, she would definitely be very jealous because there was someone who was even more seductive and gorgeous than her. Yang Dingtian even felt that when Yao Rao got closer, Qin Huayu and Zhu Hongxue instinctively held their breaths. It was as if the air that Yao Rao breathed was filled with charm and fragrance. Seeing Yang Dingtian fiercely glare at her, Yao Rao giggled indifferently. Then, without greeting him, she directly flew past Yang Dingtian. What apology? Acting coquettishly? Just you wait. Would a vixen who is a few thousand years old feel guilty because of such a small thing? Save it. Her skin was as thick as her enchanting beauty, bottomless. She was already giving you face by coming back before the final battle. Just like that, the two of them passed by each other without greeting or speaking. Yao Rao directly flew back to Cloud Sky City while Yang Dingtian led Qin Huayu and Zhu Hongxue to the west. The distance of 800 li was covered in just 3 hours. Ever since Shiminju defected, the entire Abyss Castle had basically been abandoned. Ever since the Tiando League passed a resolution and confirmed that the Western Army would attack Cloud Sky City from the west, Cloud Sky City had been under attack. The defense of the Abyss Castle was used again. There were troops stationed there for a long time. Previously, there were a total of 500 Devil Dragon Army soldiers guarding the Abyss Castle. Yesterday, after successfully attacking the Sky Thunder City, the Northern World Society's surprise attack across the sea was also part of the plan. Therefore, the last direction, the border abyss, received a lot of attention. Therefore, Yang Dingtian sent another 500 demon dragon warriors to the Abyss Castle. Therefore, at this moment, the entire 3rd Legion's 1,000 demon dragon warriors were all stationed at the Abyss Castle. What's the situation? Yang Dingtian had just landed in the Abyss Castle when the 3rd Army commander, Yunlong, immediately went forward to greet him. How is Cloud Heaven City? This morning was also a day of worry for the brothers of the Abyss Castle. Even though they were 800 miles apart, everything that happened in Cloud Heaven City could not be seen or heard from here. However, as the most elite warriors, they still instinctively felt that yesterday's surprise attack on Sky Thunder City would attract the enemy's revenge. However, without orders, they could not return to Cloud Sky City. Now that they saw Yang Dingtian land, they immediately asked. The World Society's sea crossing operation has been completely destroyed. Yang Dingtian said, the enemy sent 2 waves of troops for a surprise attack. The first wave was 2,000 Demon Wolf Demon Cavalry, and the second wave was 800 Golden Eagle Army. What? The 3rd Army commander, Yunlong's expression suddenly changed. As the king of cavalry, even though Dongli was tens of thousands of miles away from the Great Plains, they vaguely knew that the Demon Wolf Army was the overlord of cavalry in the Great Plains. The enemy sent out 2,000 Demon Wolf Army, while Cloud Heaven City only had 1,800 Devil Dragon Army soldiers. How many of our brothers are left? Yunlong asked worriedly and sorrowfully. Of course, he was the one who understood cavalry the most. He immediately asked the key question. Our Devil Dragon Cavalry is more tenacious and braver as they fight. The enemy's 2,000 Demon Wolf Army was completely annihilated. The 1st Legion and 2nd Legion have about 1,000 men left, Yang Dingtian said. The 3rd commander, Yunlong's body trembled, and he almost fainted. Even though he was in the 3rd Legion, the Devil Dragon Cavalry brothers in the 1st Legion and 2nd Legion were his life and death brothers. Almost 1,000 of them died in a short period of time. To him, it was completely heart-wrenching. Especially since he didn't personally fight, the pain was even more obvious. How many casualties did the enemy's 800 Golden Eagle Army cause to Cloud Heaven City? Yunlong asked worriedly. A few hundred flying mounts were almost completely annihilated, Qin Huaiyu replied. However, the enemy's 800 Golden Eagle army were also completely annihilated. How? How is that possible? Yunlong said, We don't have an air force. Could it be that the Earth-splitting city sent reinforcements? As the third commander of the Devil Dragon Army, Yunlong still didn't know that the Demon Eagle Army had entered Cloud Heaven City. He only thought of the Demon Eagle Army's reinforcements when he saw the Demon Eagle King under Yang Dingtian. This Demon Eagle King killed 200 Golden Eagle demon beasts. The few of us worked together and killed 200. Sect Master Yang released the Demon Sky Splitter and triggered the lightning in the sky to kill the remaining 400. Qin Huaiyu explained in the shortest way. However, the third commander Yunlong and the Devil Dragon Army's soldiers still looked at Yang Dingtian in shock. A Demon Eagle King killed 200 Golden Eagles. City Lord Yang Dingtian triggered the lightning and killed 400 Golden Eagles. How spectacular and intense was the scene! Suddenly, Yunlong and the others looked at Yang Dingtian and the Demon Eagle King with even more enthusiasm and worship. Alright, how's the situation on your side? Yang Dingtian asked. City Lord Yang, the situation is very bad. Yunlong said, In fact, I have already sent a messenger back to Cloud Heaven City to report the situation here. However, you came even faster. How is it not good? Yang Dingtian asked, Did they launch a surprise attack? No, they didn't. Yunlong said, This morning, their progress suddenly sped up and they finished repairing all the hundreds of suspension bridges. Moreover, there are already more than 100,000 soldiers gathering at the other side of the suspension bridges, ready to cross the bridge at any time.
So fast.
Yang Dingtian said in disbelief. Didn't you destroy them? Did you just let them finish repairing the suspension bridges? Zhu Hongxue said unhappily. In the past half a month, they only built 200 to 300 suspension bridges. In just half a day, they have already repaired 100.
Can they fly?
During this period of time, the construction of the suspension bridges in Northwest Qin City and White Cloud City had never stopped. From the beginning until now, the other side had built at least 200 to 300 suspension bridges. However, almost all of them were destroyed by Cloud Heaven City's Devil Dragon Army and fell into the magma of the abyss. The Devil Dragon Army was as fast as lightning. Once they started destroying, there was no way to stop them. Hearing Zhu Hongshua's question, Yunlong was not angry. He quietly explained, City Lord Yang, Young Master Zhu. This morning, the enemy suddenly transported over 100 suspension bridges that had already been built and fixed them on the other side. Thousands of flying mounts carried hundreds of drawbridges to our side and then fixed them in place as quickly as possible. In less than an hour, the 100 suspension bridges were all repaired. Everyone immediately clicked their tongues. As expected of the wealthy Northwest Qin City, they could use such a large force. The abyss at the border was at least a few thousand meters long. The construction of the suspension bridges required extremely light and tough materials. The cost of each suspension bridge was astronomical. In the past half a month, Northwest Qin City had already destroyed 200 to 300 suspension bridges. This time, they actually built 100 of them at once and used thousands of flying mounts to build them all at once. This was something that even Cloud Heaven City, who had made a fortune, could not do. Even if they built 100 of them at once, you could still launch a surprise attack and destroy them. Zhu Hongxue said, I don't believe that the speed of the enemy's construction is faster than our speed of destruction. Yunlong said, Young Master Zhu, I also wanted to give the order to destroy the suspension bridges. However, the situation did not allow us to take action. At least, I do not have the authority to send troops to destroy the suspension bridges because I cannot bear the loss of the army. The few of them immediately fell silent. Yang Dingtian's pupils shrank. Even the Devil Dragon Legion did not dare to send troops to destroy the suspension bridges. How many terrifying forces were guarding the two sides of the suspension bridges? Let's go and take a look. Yang Dingtian said. Yes. The few of them replied in unison. Then, the three of them rode on their flying mounts. Yunlong led the remaining Devil Dragon warriors in the Abyss Castle and flew towards the Abyss border. The Abyss Castle was very close to the Abyss border. They arrived in a short while. Yang Dingtian was in the air and quickly saw the situation at the Abyss border. He immediately sucked in a breath of cold air. No wonder the Devil Dragon Legion's 3rd Regiment did not dare to destroy the suspension bridges. It was not that they were not brave enough. But if they did, the consequences would be devastating. Fortunately, Yunlong did not send troops. If he really did, it would cause a huge loss to the Devil Dragon Legion's 3rd Regiment. Perhaps Yang Dingtian would really behead him in public. 100 suspension bridges spanned across both sides of the Abyss border. Each suspension bridge was a few thousand meters long and 3 meters wide. There were hundreds of suspension bridges, and each bridge was 30 meters apart. The 100 suspension bridges were a total of 5 to 6 miles long. The sky above the suspension bridges was dark and covered the sky. There were at least 2,000 to 3,000 large flying mounts. That's right, 2,000 to 3,000. They almost completely covered the sky for more than 10 miles. It was like a huge black cloud. Of course, most of these mounts were not combat mounts. They were transportation mounts. Every 3 flying mounts were fixed to each other. Then, an incomparably huge crystal crossbow was placed on the backs of the 3 flying mounts. This was because only the Divine Weapons Manor had small crystal crossbows. They were their trump cards. However, the price of these large crystal crossbows was even more terrifying. The price of each large crystal crossbow was at least tens of millions of gold coins. Cloud Sky City's Shimanwia did his best and only had less than 100 of them in the castle. At this moment, the Northwest Qin City had actually mobilized close to 1,000 of them. Each crystal crossbow was 20 meters wide. Added to the 3 flying mounts, they formed an aerial fortress. 3,000 flying mounts and 1,000 large crystal crossbows formed 1,000 aerial turrets. They circled and protected the 100 suspension bridges below.
Not only that,
on the other side of the suspension bridge, at the border of the Northwest Qin City's territory, there were a total of 2,000 crystal crossbows. A total of 3,000 large crystal crossbows were aimed at this side. These large crossbows were very inconvenient to move. If the demon dragons were allowed to move quickly, it should be very difficult to hit them. However, if they wanted to destroy the suspension bridge, the position was narrow, and they would become live targets. Basically, the number of crossbows that went would be destroyed. If it was a stubborn commander, 1,000 demon dragons might have been completely wiped out. The enemy's defense was not only that. At this moment, in the sky on the other side of the suspension bridge, more than a dozen top experts were sitting on flying mounts. They were eyeing Yang Dingtian's side covetously. That's right, more than a dozen top experts. Yang Dingtian once again saw his old sweetheart, Qiu Ruhan, this 3-star grandmaster. Not only that, Yang Dingtian also saw a 6-star grandmaster, the White Cloud City Lord, Yi Wuqing. Not only that, there were 4 grandmasters beside them. The 3 grandmasters of the White Cloud City were all out. On the Northwest Qin City side, there was another grandmaster guarding Qiu Ruhan firmly. In total, there were 6 grandmasters and 10 revered martial artists. In addition, there were 3,000 large crystal crossbows guarding the suspension bridge. On Yang Dingtian's side, 1,000 demon dragons lined up neatly. They were 500 meters away from the suspension bridge. As long as the order was given, even if it meant death, they would instantly charge out. Yang Dingtian immediately sucked in a breath of cold air. He did not expect that Qiu Ruhan had actually returned to the Northwest Qin City. Qin Wanqiu was a cunning old fox. He would not fight to the death with Yang Dingtian. However, Qiu Ruhan and Yi Wuqing hated Yang Dingtian to the bone. He did not expect that they would actually go all out to protect the suspension bridge. This time, it was troublesome. It was impossible to rely on the demon dragons to destroy the suspension bridge. Under the destructive attack of the 3,000 large crystal crossbows, the consequences would be unimaginable. Yang Dingtian, Zhu Hongxue, and Qin Huayu forcefully used the Xian flame to destroy the bridge. It was also impossible. The other side had 6 grandmasters and 10 revered martial artists. If Yang Dingtian and the other 2 rushed over, there was basically no way for them to survive. They had just destroyed 1 or 2 suspension bridges and were about to be killed by the other side's top experts. Could Yang Dingtian go invisible and destroy the bridge? If it was just 1 suspension bridge, it might be possible. However, to destroy 100 suspension bridges was completely impossible. In less than 10 seconds, they would be surrounded and killed by the other side. When they were completely invisible, they would not be discovered. However, once they released the Xian flame, they would be instantly exposed. There were 2 ways to destroy the suspension bridge. One was to mobilize the Demon Vulture army and destroy the crystal crossbows. They would endure the casualties and destroy the suspension bridge. The other was to mobilize their most secret weapon, their master, Dongfang Minmi. They would eliminate the other side's experts and destroy the suspension bridge. However, these 2 methods were both impossible. These 2 methods were Yang Dingtian's trump cards to win by surprise. The Southern Army, which was directly commanded by Qin Shiqi and Ning Wuming, was the most important enemy, the most fatal enemy. If they used their trump card at this time, how would they win when the time came? If Yang Dingtian had to use his trump card just to destroy 100 suspension bridges, then there was no need to fight this battle. Seeing Yang Dingtian again, Qiu Ruhan could be said to be filled with new hatred. She looked at Yang Dingtian with bone-deep hatred and absolute coldness. City Lord Yang Dingtian, I trust you have been well since we last met. Qiu Ruhan said coldly, if you have the backbone, then mobilize your demon dragon army and destroy it. I will show you what a destructive blow is.
Yang Dingtian did not speak.
You don't have the backbone? Then scram back and watch as my 500,000 army crosses the bridge and rendezvous with the Southern Army. Wait for my 1 million army to arrive and raise your Cloud Sky City to the ground. We will kill everyone in the city. Your wives and women will all fall into our master's lust and let them beg for death, Qiu Ruhan said viciously. Yang Dingtian still ignored her. However, Qin Huayu, Zhu Hongxue, and the 1,000 Demon Dragon army were about to explode from anger. They could not wait to charge over without caring about their lives. Everyone listen to my orders. Qiu Ruhan suddenly flew into the air and used the blue ice ray to draw a blue line 100 meters in front of Yang Dingtian. She said sternly, as long as a single person crosses that blue line on Yang Dingtian's side, all the crystal crossbows will shoot and kill them all. All the martial masters and martial saints will attack and kill all his lackeys. Yes. Everyone shouted in unison. Immediately, all the crystal crossbows were aimed at Yang Dingtian's side. This dazzling blue line was like an incomparably huge humiliation that was deeply engraved in the hearts of Yang Dingtian's side. They did not dare to cross the line. Once they did, they would not be able to withstand the enemy's destructive blow. Bastard Yang Dingtian, either you fight or scram, Qiu Ruhan said coldly. At this moment, countless troops were gathering behind Qiu Ruhan. Moreover, the densely packed troops were already divided into 100 square formations. Once they were completely assembled, they would begin to cross the bridge and enter Cloud Sky City's territory. Once the army entered Cloud Sky City, Yang Dingtian's strategy of attacking 3 and releasing 1 would completely fail. Yang Dingtian looked at the hundreds of thousands of troops on the other side of the bridge. They were majestic and mighty, filling the sky with dust. He looked at the thousands of flying mounts in the air, covering the sky. He looked at the 3,000 crystal crossbows, releasing a destructive aura. He looked at the dozens of top-notch experts, 6 martial masters, and 10 martial saints standing in the abyss. There was no chance, no possibility of success. Could it be that all their previous efforts would be wasted? Could it be that they were going to sit and watch as the killing 3 and releasing 1 failed? It could be said that once the Western Army successfully crossed the bridge and entered Cloud Sky City's territory, there would be no reason for them to stop. No matter what, The divine weapons village Qiu Wanjie would lead hundreds of thousands of troops out of the Sunset Mountain Range and enter Cloud Sky City's territory. At that time, Cloud Sky City would once again face the situation of being surrounded by more than 1,000,000 troops. Yang Dingtian's trump card was far from enough to destroy more than 1,000,000 troops. Once the 1,000,000 troops surrounded the city, it would be difficult for Yang Dingtian to overturn the situation. He focused his gaze and looked at the 100 suspension bridges. It was these 100 suspension bridges that could change the fate of Cloud Sky City. They had to be destroyed, but they couldn't be destroyed. No matter what, they couldn't be destroyed. Suddenly, Yang Dingtian's eyes constricted. He looked at the suspension bridge's lock and said, "Are these suspension bridge ropes made of heavenly demonic silk?" "Yes," Qin Huayu said. "Each strand of heavenly demonic silk is 3 times thinner than a strand of hair, but can support hundreds of kilograms of weight. Each suspension bridge rope is made of 500 strands of heavenly demonic silk. Each suspension bridge has 50 suspension cables." Qin Huayu's meaning was clear. Each suspension bridge could support millions of kilograms of weight. Even if thousands of troops stood on a suspension bridge, nothing would happen. Yang Dingtian took a deep breath and said, "Retreat. Return to the city." Qin Huayu and Zhu Hongxue were stunned. Then, they were filled with unwillingness. Yes. Then, the 3 of them turned and retreated. More than 1,000 Devil Dragon warriors turned and retreated. Incomparable humiliation, unwillingness, and anger. Ha ha ha. In the air, Qiu Ruhan's twisted laughter could be heard. "Everyone, take a look. This is the so-called mighty and unyielding Yang Dingtian, retreating with his tail between his legs. What a spineless coward. What a coward. Yang Dingtian, just you wait. 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 Not a single person, not a single blade of grass, not a single tree will be left. Your women will all suffer hellish torture. They will beg for death, but they won't be able to die." Zhu Hongxue, who was retreating in the air, was about to explode from anger. Then, he suddenly turned around and was about to fight Qiu Ruhan to the death. This was intolerable. Yang Dingtian blocked him and said, "What are you doing? Go back." Zhu Hongxue said, "I can't take it anymore. Even if I die, I have to fight." Yang Dingtian said, "Who told you to fight? Could it be that we are just going to watch them arrogantly cross the bridge and set foot on our land?" Zhu Hongxue said harshly, "Of course not." Yang Dingtian smiled and said, "Let's go back to Cloud Sky City. We'll be back in a while. Later, I'll perform a miracle for you to see. I'll let you see how effortlessly I destroy these 100 suspension bridges." Qin Huayu and Zhu Hongxue were shocked and said, "How is that possible? The other party had such a terrifying defense. Yang Dingtian alone could destroy 100 suspension bridges effortlessly. How was that possible?" Chapter 478. Yang Dingtian used his fastest speed to return to Cloud Sky City. Song Chunhua was doing the final defense of Cloud Sky City. When she saw Yang Dingtian return so quickly, she was filled with doubt and worry. "It's fine, continue with your work," Yang Dingtian said. Then, Yang Dingtian and the others quickly flew towards Cloud Sky City. "Qin Huayu, I remember that your wife loves music, right?" Yang Dingtian asked. "My wife?" Qin Huayu was stunned. Then he blushed and nodded. "Go and call her over," Yang Dingtian said. Qin Huayu was stunned again. What did this have to do with music? But he immediately obeyed the order and left. Back at Cloud Sky City. At this moment, Yan Yan and Jiao Jiao felt that a big battle was coming and were desperately practicing their swordsmanship. Seeing that Yang Dingtian had returned, Yan Yan threw her sword aside and pounced on him. "Husband, that vixen Yao Rao is back. Did you see her?" Yan Yan ran over. In front of Zhu Hongxue, she was too embarrassed to throw herself into Yang Dingtian's arms. She only held on to Yang Dingtian's hand. On the other side, Qin Jiao resisted the urge to pounce over and scolded, "So mushy." "Yan Yan, do you know how to play the zither?" Yang Dingtian asked. Yan Yan blushed and stuck out her tongue. I don't know." "Jiao, do you know?" Yang Dingtian asked. I don't know either," Jiao said. "Yan Yan, do we have heavenly devil silk at home?" Yang Dingtian asked. "Yes, a lot, Yan Yan said. "They were all sent over by that woman, Qin Mingli. And go and get a carriage of heavenly devil silk. Jiao, go and get all the musical instruments in the castle," Yang Dingtian said.
And
It's not easy to help Yang Dingtian. The two little women are very excited. The heavenly devil silk was an extremely expensive material. Even though Qin Mingli did not know what use Yang Dingtian would have for it, she still prepared a lot for Yang Dingtian. At the very least, it could be used to make armor. Heavenly devil silk. It sounded like the silk of a powerful silkworm. In fact, this kind of demonic silkworm was a kind of demonic beast, about a dozen kilograms in size. It had incomparably sharp teeth and an incomparably strong stomach. It likes to devour all kinds of strange metals, especially diamond jades. However, the staple food was a very special kind of magic Latin leaf. This kind of demonic silkworm could spit out silk 3 times in 2 years after consuming a large amount of food. Of course, if it didn't spin a cocoon, it would directly spit out silk. Furthermore, only one at a time. The threads were of varying lengths. The shortest ones were only 100 meters long, while the longest ones were tens of thousands of meters long. That's right, a single thread was tens of thousands of meters long. However, a thread that was tens of thousands of meters long was very rare. Most of the heavenly devil silk was only a few thousand meters long. There were many uses for this kind of silk, but no one used it to make ropes because it was extremely extravagant. In the past, the Northwest Qin City's suspension bridge was also made of metal chains. The biggest use of this kind of silk was to make tight soft armor. This was because this thing was not afraid of being burned by fire cut by blades and had an almost invulnerable effect. Of course, even the simplest heavenly devil silk soft armor was extremely expensive, at least a few million gold coins. Therefore, the Northwest Qin City used the heavenly devil silk as ropes to make 100 suspension bridges at once. Yang Dingtian could only gasp in amazement at such extravagance. Yan Yan quickly found a cart of heavenly devil silk. Yang Dingtian and the others immediately got to work. Every 500 strands of heavenly devil silk were tied into a rope, and in the shortest amount of time, they made 30 ropes. Then, they fixed the 30 ropes at both ends of the main hall and laid various light steel planks on top. They made a relatively simple model of the suspension bridge. Jiao also brought over several hundred kinds of musical instruments. Then, except for Song Chunhua, Song Lihua, and Madame Shimin all came to the main hall, opening their eyes wide, ready to watch Yang Dingtian create a miracle. Qin Huayu and Zhu Hongxue opened their eyes to the maximum, afraid to miss a single detail. They wanted to see what kind of miracle Yang Dingtian was going to create. "Lihua, come here, sit in my seat, and play various musical instruments," Yang Dingtian said. Song Lihua was startled, then nodded and said, "Yes." Then, she came to Yang Dingtian's position, which was about 3 to 4 meters away from the simple heavenly devil silk suspension bridge. She sat down on the chair leisurely. But what was a little funny was that she was wearing wear-resistant work clothes, and her sitting posture was that of a charming goddess, so the feeling was very harmonious. At this moment, Song Lihua couldn't help but roll her eyes at Yang Dingtian and say, "City Lord, why didn't you tell me in advance that you wanted me to play the zither? I could have changed my clothes." Then, Song Lihua picked up a zither-like thing and began to play. She played very well, and the melody was extremely beautiful, with a distant, ancient charm. Yang Dingtian leaned close to the suspension bridge and looked at it for a few seconds, then said, "Lihua, change the song, something more intense and faster." Song Lihua immediately changed the song, which was impassioned and made one's blood boil. Yang Dingtian observed the heavenly devil silk rope for a moment, then shook his head and said, "Change the instrument." Song Lihua changed the instrument again. This time, it was a big guy that looked like a harp. This time, without Yang Dingtian saying anything, she played an elegant and slow song first. Song Lihua's skills were really too high. Even though everyone knew that Yang Dingtian had a serious matter to attend to, they still couldn't help but be intoxicated by Song Lihua's zither music. Just when everyone was listening to the most fascinating song, Yang Dingtian spoiled the mood and said, "Change it." At this moment, even Jiao Jiao couldn't help but roll her eyes at Yang Dingtian. Next, Song Lihua played a faster and more intense song. However, there was still nothing that Yang Dingtian wanted. "Change the instrument," Yang Dingtian said. Next, Song Lihua changed to something similar to a set of chimes and began to ring. At first, only the chimes were ringing, but later, the throne in the hall also made a strange sound. Everyone couldn't help but be surprised. The big bell at the top of Cloud Sky City was also making a buzzing sound. Yang Dingtian was delighted. He got it. Of course, even though it wasn't the type he wanted, at least he got it. Change the instrument. Just like that, she kept changing. In the end, Song Lihua played an instrument for almost half a minute. Luckily, she was a talented woman and knew almost every instrument. Even if she didn't know how to play it, she could understand it by analogy. After almost 2 hours, Yang Dingtian still didn't get the result that he wanted. Yang Dingtian was immediately disappointed and worried. Could it really not work? If this miracle didn't work, then the bridge couldn't be destroyed. If the bridge couldn't be destroyed, then the hundreds of thousands of troops in the west would flood into Cloud Sky City's territory. Yang Dingtian's deployment and previous sacrifices would be in vain. Suddenly, Yang Dingtian opened his eyes. He came to Song Lihua's side and directly took a zither that looked like a pipa. This thing looked like a pipa, but it had 5 strings. And the body of the zither wasn't made of wood, but of a special jade. And the strings were made of a special metal. Yang Dingtian grabbed the 5-string hugging zither and immediately tore off the strings. Everyone was shocked. If they didn't know Yang Dingtian's character very well, they would have thought that he was destroying the zither to vent his anger. After ripping off the 5 metal strings, Yang Dingtian pulled the heavenly devil silk and made 5 strings by bundling them up. Then, he tied them to the 5-string zither. After he was done, Yang Dingtian handed the brand new 5-string zither with heavenly devil silk strings to Song Lihua and said, "Play it again. The more intense, the better."
"Yes," Song Lihua said solemnly.
Then, she began to play the zither. The tune she played was the most intense apocalyptic frenzy. This song could be considered a song of the evil Tao. It had been played by the evil Tao during the previous Armageddon War. The tune was very intense, very terrifying, and directly tugged at one's heartstrings. Immersed in the rhythm of this tune, even one's heartbeat and pulse would be changed. Dang, 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 Song Lihua flicked her finger. Suddenly, everyone's eyebrows trembled. Because, after changing to heavenly devil silk strings, the sound became extremely high-pitched, almost to the point of no sound. The sound wasn't loud, but it seemed to pierce through one's brain. Yang Dingtian leaned in front of the suspension bridge, made of heavenly devil silk rope. As Song Lihua played, suddenly, the heavenly devil silk rope in front of him jumped.
"Got it! Got it!"
"Found it! It's here! It's a success!" Yang Dingtian walked over and took the zither from Song Lihua's arms. Then, he channeled his profound qi and began to play. The tune that Yang Dingtian was playing was very messy and messy. However, it became faster and faster, higher and sharper. In the beginning, one could still hear the sound of playing. Later on, when it reached the peak, it was almost impossible to hear the sound at all. It felt very uncomfortable. However, a magical miracle happened. This simulated suspension bridge actually began to shake and shake. As Yang Dingtian's speed became faster and faster, the profound qi input became greater and greater. The heavenly devil silk rope on the suspension bridge shook more and more violently. Dang, 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 dang. Yang Dingtian was completely fast to the extreme. Bang, 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 bang. There were bursts of loud explosions. The strings of the zither in Yang Dingtian's hands all broke. At the same time, the heavenly devil silk rope on the simulated suspension bridge also broke in an instant. In an instant, the short distance, countless segments, countless heavenly devil silk scattered in the air. The entire hall instantly fell into a deathly silence. Everyone looked at Yang Dingtian as if they had seen a god or a ghost. Not only the others, even Yan Yan, Jiao Jiao, and Qin Mengli. There was also Yao Rao, who had just walked in to watch the show. How did he do it? This was really unfathomable. Jiao Jiao was even thinking, is this person still my husband? He doesn't look like it. He's not that powerful. When he licked my body or forced me to lick his body, other than being a lecher and a bastard, there was nothing special about him. How could he be so powerful? In an instant, Yang Dingtian's image in Jiao Jiao's heart became completely mysterious and unfathomable. Yao Rao originally did not think much of this human little boy, but now she could not help but be deeply stunned. To her, this was a completely unknown territory. It could probably be classified as intelligence. Intelligence could be said to be a fatal attraction to the Fox clan. Zhu Hongxue was also stunned. Then there was a very simple sentence in his mind. No wonder he could be the boss. Yang Dingtian put down the zither and said, "Use the fastest speed to make 500 zither with the strings of the heavenly devil silk. I will write down how much heavenly devil silk is needed for each zither string. Then, go find the Devil Dragon Army and find 509-star third-class martial great masters and above. Because the amount of profound chi needed and the speed of plucking the strings must be at least 9-star third-class martial xian." Yes. Everyone shouted in unison. The reason why Yang Dingtian destroyed the suspension bridge was very simple. It was resonance. Because when he thought of the bridge, he thought of a very famous event in Earth's history. At the beginning of the 19th century, a group of Napoleon's army, under the command of their officers, marched majestically and uniformly across a bridge in Angers, France. When they were about to reach the middle of the bridge suddenly shook violently and finally broke and collapsed, causing many soldiers and citizens to fall into the water and die. After investigation, it was found that the main culprit of this tragedy was resonance. Because when the large group of soldiers walked in unison, it produced a frequency that coincided with the natural frequency of the bridge, causing the bridge to vibrate even more. When its amplitude reached the maximum limit and exceeded the bridge's resistance, the bridge broke. There were many similar events. Compared to the sturdy iron bridge, the suspension bridge was undoubtedly even less sturdy. And although the heavenly devil silk was incomparably tough, it looked like something that was extremely easy to cause resonance. Then what needed to be done was to find the frequency that made it resonate and make the vibration reach the limit, causing the heavenly devil silk to break. Of course, it was too difficult to make the heavenly devil silk break, but this chaotic world happened to have profound chi energy, which could increase the vibration effect by a lot. In just over an hour, the 500 special zither had been completed. Of course, most of them were just temporary modifications. The entire Cloud Castle had collected a few hundred. The remaining ones were not enough, so several Grandmaster-level experts used jade stones to carve them on the spot. They even used a high-grade profound fire, so of course, the speed was very fast. At the same time, 509-star martial Xian warriors and above were all ready. Under the command of Yang Dingtian, they practiced dozens of times with empty hand gestures. When everything was ready, each of them held a special zither in their hands. They rode the Devil Dragon and sped towards the border abyss in the west at full speed. At this time, the 500,000 soldiers of the Western Legion of the Punitive Army had all gathered at the eastern border of the northwest Qin city. The 100 miles of land near the drawbridge had become an extremely huge military camp. Countless barracks bloomed on the 100 miles of land. With the arrival of the war, the people within 300 miles of the eastern border of the northwest Qin city had all been evacuated. These 300 miles of land had completely become a huge military camp. At this time, There were already 200,000 soldiers gathered at the edge of the abyss, divided into 100 formations. Each formation had 2,000 people. They were divided into 20 trips across the bridge. 100 people crossed each drawbridge at a time, so 10,000 people crossed the bridge at a time. Each trip took less than half an hour. In other words, it would take 10 hours for all the 200,000 soldiers to cross the bridge. In addition, there were other tedious preparations and large-scale supplies to cross the bridge. With a total of more than 500,000 soldiers, it would take more than 30 hours for all of them to cross the bridge. There were only 6 days left before the decisive battle on August 15th. For the Western Legion, time was very tight. After crossing the bridge, they had to rush for more than 100 miles every day without stopping to reach the Cloud Sky City on the day of the decisive battle. Of course, rushing for more than 100 miles every day was very difficult for the cold weapon soldiers of the Earth era. The infantry soldiers of the Earth era could only march for a few dozen miles every day. However, it was completely different in the chaotic world. The soldiers here were all professional martial artists, and their physiques were much higher. If they rushed at full speed, it was not impossible for them to travel 200 to 300 miles. If they were cavalry, the ordinary horses of the chaotic world had much higher endurance and speed. It was not impossible for them to travel 1,000 miles in a day. At this time, the defense of the 100 drawbridges was still very strong and impenetrable. There were still 3,000 large crystal crossbows and more than 10 top experts guarding the 100 drawbridges. Behind Xiao Ruhan, the 200,000 soldiers had all lined up and were ready to cross the bridge at any time. Previously, Yang Dingtian had retreated with his tail between his legs. Even though Xiao Ruhan had mocked him viciously, she still believed that Yang Dingtian wouldn't let this matter rest and wouldn't give up just like that. However, if she put herself in Yang Dingtian's position, she could not think of any way to destroy the drawbridges. At this time, the territory of the Cloud Sky City suddenly vibrated intensely. Then, a black shadow came to a stop like a bolt of lightning. Xiao Ruhan's beautiful eyes flashed with jealousy. The Devil Dragon Army was really coveted. They could travel at a speed of more than 1,000 miles every 2 hours. It was a cavalry army that everyone dreamed of. Everyone, get ready to meet the enemy, Xiao Ruhan said coldly. As long as the enemy crosses the blue line, kill them immediately. Yes. Suddenly, everyone shouted in unison. Then, the 3,000 crystal crossbows were all aimed at the Devil Dragon army that was flying over. Yang Dingtian led the 500 Devil Dragon warriors and rushed over like a gust of wind. Then, as Yang Dingtian raised his hand, the 500 Devil Dragon warriors instantly stopped behind the blue line. This was really an ace cavalry army. They moved as fast as lightning and stopped as stone. Under the rapid speed, as long as Yang Dingtian gave the order, the 500 Devil Dragon warriors would immediately stop and become a perfectly straight line. There was not the slightest mistake. However, when she saw that the 500 Devil Dragon warriors were not holding weapons but zither, Qin Mingli was stunned. Then, she held her stomach and laughed. Yang Dingtian, did you come all this way just to find a few hundred zither to play for us when we cross the bridge? Xiao Ruhan said sarcastically. Then why don't you let your wife and mother-in-law do it? The mother and daughter danced together. It will definitely make my hundreds of thousands of soldiers forget the fatigue of marching. Madame Xiao is an outstanding beauty. It is not bad for you to dance and entertain these soldiers. The one with the poisonous tongue was not Yang Dingtian, but Qin Huaiyu. Every time Xiao Ruhan spoke viciously, Yang Dingtian did not know how to retaliate. After all, she was Qin Huaiyu's mother in name, even though she and Qin Huaiyu were like enemies. Unexpectedly, it was Qin Huaiyu who retaliated viciously. Xiao Ruhan looked at Qin Huaiyu with eyes full of disdain and viciousness. She said indifferently, "What's wrong? Yang Dingtian slept with your woman and made you a cuckold. Yet you still support him like this. With your despicable personality, you are really not worthy to be the successor of the Northwest Qin city." If it was in the past, Qin Huayu would probably have jumped up. However, now, he had found a place in his heart where he belonged. He trusted and understood Yang Dingtian. This kind of despicable attempt to drive a wedge between them was no longer of any use. Woman, you have no sense of shame, and you still dare to bite back. Qin Huayu sneered and said, when you made my father a cuckold, when you sold your ass in front of Ning Wuming in evil ways in order to survive, when you served Ning Wuming together with your so-called daughter Qin Chichi, how did you feel in your heart? Qin Huayu's words were extremely vicious and directly stabbed at Qiu Ruhan's most humiliating and sensitive place. She was so angry that she almost vomited blood. She said coldly to Qin Huayu, you son of a bitch. Just you wait. I will make you regret saying those words. My revenge will be completely unleashed on your woman, your daughter. All right, Madam Qiu. Yang Dingtian said indifferently, let's put aside the vicious curses and attacks for now. How about we make a bet? Qiu Ruhan's beautiful eyes turned and looked at Yang Dingtian. All right, what are we betting on? We will not cross this blue line in front of us. We will not use any profound flames or profound skills. We will just stand here and not launch any attacks. I will be able to destroy your 100 suspension bridges. Yang Dingtian said, ha ha ha, in your dreams. Even a great grandmaster like Qin Wanqiu can't do this. Qiu Ruhan sneered, let me finish. Yang Dingtian said, we will not cross this blue line and not launch any attacks. If I use some unfathomable method to destroy these 100 suspension bridges, what will you do? In your dreams. Qiu Ruhan said, you say it first. If you can't destroy these 100 suspension bridges, what will you do? You state this condition. Yang Dingtian said, you come over, kneel in front of me, and lick the soles of my shoes. How about it? Qiu Ruhan said coldly. It seemed that offending a woman was the most terrible thing. Previously, Yang Dingtian's abuse of Qiu Ruhan had already made her hate him to the extreme. She would not kill or beat him. She would make Yang Dingtian kneel in front of everyone and lick the soles of her shoes. This was not something that the madam of the Northwest Qin city should say. This woman was already a little hysterical. Okay. Yang Dingtian said resolutely and decisively, then what if I succeed? Qiu Ruhan said, I will kneel in front of you and lick the soles of your shoes. How about it? Good. Yang Dingtian shouted. Then, in front of several 100,000 people, make an oath. Then, in front of several 100,000 people, the two of them made the highest oath in the primal chaos continent. Next, several 100,000 people stopped all their actions and stared at Yang Dingtian. They racked their brains but still could not imagine how Yang Dingtian could destroy the suspension bridges. It was simply impossible. There were 3,000 crystal crossbows and more than a dozen top-notch experts defending. Moreover, Yang Dingtian actually said that if they did not cross the blue line, they would not launch any attacks. How? How is this possible? Even a god couldn't do that. Qiu Ruhan loudly ordered, all crystal crossbows, listen to my order. As long as a single soldier from Cloud Sky City crosses the line, or as long as they launch any attacks, you will shoot with all your might.
Yes.
The 3,000 large crystal crossbows shouted loudly, and all the giant crossbows were raised. Yes. The dozen top-notch experts behind Qiu Ruhan replied in unison. Then, Qiu Ruhan began to order, cross the bridge. Immediately, 100 rows of soldiers moved out and began to cross the bridge. Each row had 100 people, so a total of 10,000 people crossed the bridge. In fact, they could have crossed the bridge an hour ago. However, Qiu Ruhan wanted to cross the bridge in front of Yang Dingtian. She wanted Yang Dingtian to watch the army enter Cloud Sky City's territory. The 10,000 soldiers, in 100 rows, stepped in orderly steps and crossed the bridge. Yang Dingtian waved his hand. Immediately, 500 warriors of martial mystic level and above neatly picked up the heavenly devil silk zither. Clang! Yang Dingtian plucked the zither strings. Immediately, The 500 people plucked the zither strings in unison. Suddenly, an incomparably sharp and ear-piercing sound was heard. The several 100,000 soldiers furrowed their brows. Xiao Ruhan sneered. Such an unpleasant zither sound. Are you trying to disgust my army to death? The 10,000 soldiers were not affected and continued to cross the bridge. Yang Dingtian continued to pluck the zither strings. The speed was getting faster and faster. The amount of mystic chi input was getting higher and higher. Every second, 10 times, 20 times, 30 times, 39 times. The sound was getting louder and louder, and in the end, it was completely inaudible. Then, under everyone's shocked gaze, a frightening scene took place. 100 suspension bridges began to tremble violently, swaying wildly, shaking wildly. The amplitude of the shaking became greater and greater, and the frequency of the vibration became higher and higher. Later, it was impossible to walk at all. The 10,000 soldiers were all lying on the bridge, hugging each other tightly for fear of falling down. Clang, 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 clang. Yang Dingtian led the 500 experts, plucking the zither strings faster and faster, faster and faster. In the end, the 500 hands completely turned into afterimages, and it was impossible to see clearly. And the sound of the zither had reached its peak, and it could not make any sound at all. The mystic chi input of the 500 people was getting higher and higher. Finally, it reached the limit that the heavenly devil silk could reach. Clang! Yang Dingtian's hand finally slashed. The 500 people's hands finally slashed. Pa! 500 neat bursting sounds. The zither strings of the 500 zither were all broken. At the same time, the strings of the 3,000 crystal crossbows were all broken in an instant. All the giant arrows flew out in a disorderly manner. Sweeping across the area, they shot countless of their own people to death. This was a complete surprise, because the strings of the crystal crossbows were also wrapped in the heavenly devil silk. The biggest and most terrifying scene was 100 suspension bridges shook to the extreme, swayed to the extreme, and then suddenly stopped.
Bang!
An incomparably loud sound. Then 100 suspension bridges all collapsed, shattered into pieces, and flew into the air. A total of 100 suspension bridges, 100 ropes made of heavenly devil silk, priceless, invulnerable, and incomparably sturdy suspension bridges, instantly shattered into pieces. Suddenly, hundreds of thousands of troops, as if they had seen a ghost, as if they had seen a god, looked at Yang Dingtian, even including Xiao Ruhan. Chapter 479. Xiao Ruhan was not the only one who was shocked. The hundreds of thousands of soldiers behind her were shocked as well. Even the 500 demon dragon warriors beside Yang Dingtian were completely stunned. That's right, they were participants, but they had no idea what was going on. How could the 100 suspension bridges all self-destruct and shatter into pieces when they were playing the zither here? Not only that, even the strings of the 3,000 crystal crossbows instantly snapped. Everyone knew very well how strong and tough the heavenly devil silk was. It could even be said that a rope made of 500 strands of heavenly devil silk would be difficult to cut with a sharp sword. Now, it actually snapped and exploded on its own. Yang Dingtian seemed to have a pair of hands from the heavens as he personally performed this miracle. Instantly, the 500 demon dragon warriors looked at Yang Dingtian with even more admiration and respect. Qin Huayu and Zhu Hongxue had already seen the miracle in Cloud Sky City's main hall, but they still could not help but be shocked. The 10,000 soldiers who crossed the bridge fell directly into the abyss and were melted by the lava. However, basically no one noticed this at this time. The hundreds of thousands of soldiers behind Xiao Ruhan all stared blankly at Yang Dingtian. With regards to Yang Dingtian, their feelings were extremely complicated. Yang Dingtian rose very quickly. In just a few years, he went from an unknown person to the young leader of the entire chaotic continent. When he became the Lord of Cloud Sky City, he was already on par with Qin Huayu and the others. And in just a few months, he inexplicably became the public enemy of the world. But at the same time, his status immediately leaped above Zhu Hongxue, Song Chunhua, and the others. Regardless of whether it was positive or negative, he had almost achieved the same fame as Dongfang Bingling. Of course, the current rumors in the world were that Yang Dingtian was a spy for the evil ways and that Yang Dingtian had caused the death of Dongfang Bingling. However, there were not many real fools in the world. Almost everyone in the world half believed and half doubted this news. Of course, most people didn't care about Yang Dingtian's feelings. It's useless for you to talk to ordinary soldiers about good and evil, about the rise and fall of the world. These soldiers, these sergeants, would only listen to the orders of their superiors. They were different from the disciples of the various forces. Those martial arts disciples were free and full of ideals. Therefore, even if there were vague rumors that Yang Dingtian was righteous, they didn't care about Yang Dingtian's evil ways. If the higher-ups wanted them to attack Cloud Sky City, then they would attack. But now, after witnessing such a miraculous scene, he was shocked. Their hearts were shaken and trembling. At this moment, Yang Dingtian's image became lofty, mysterious, and invincible. This filled the hearts of the hundreds of thousands of soldiers with fear and respect for Yang Dingtian. They did not want to become enemies with him at all. A person who could do such a miraculous thing seemed to have been sent by the heavens to become enemies with him and attack him. They didn't want to do it and didn't dare to do it. Xiao Ruhan, what about the thing you promised? Qin Huayu sneered and broke the dead silence. That's right. Everyone suddenly woke up from their shock. Xiao Ruhan, under extreme hatred, had made an extremely vicious bet with Yang Dingtian that was not befitting of her status. Just like when Yang Dingtian successfully destroyed 100 suspension bridges, Xiao Ruhan had knelt down to lick Yang Dingtian's shoes. Now, Yang Dingtian's miraculous performance had mysteriously destroyed 100 suspension bridges. Then, Xiao Ruhan should fulfill her promise. For a moment, everyone's eyes fell on Xiao Ruhan, including the hundreds of thousands of soldiers behind her. Although they were full of fear for Xiao Ruhan, they still stared at her closely. If she really kept her end of the bet, then it would be the biggest show that everyone had ever seen. Not only all the soldiers, but even the White Cloud City Lord, Yu Wuqing, looked at her. Xiao Ruhan, as the wife of the Northwest Qin City, had great power and was arrogant and domineering. Even the White Cloud City Lord had to look up to her. At this moment, if he could see Xiao Ruhan kneeling down to lick his shoes, he would probably never forget it. For a moment, Xiao Ruhan was the focus of countless gazes. That kind of humiliation and anger almost exploded from Xiao Ruhan's body. She couldn't wait to rush over and tear Yang Dingtian into pieces. She couldn't wait to fly into the air and kill everyone present, whether they were on her side or the enemy. There was another deathly silence in the hall. No one spoke. They were all waiting for Xiao Ruhan's choice. Would she fulfill the bet or break her promise? Of course, no one dared to make a sound. They were afraid that Xiao Ruhan would vent her anger on them. Suddenly, Xiao Ruhan smiled. Her beautiful and cold face revealed an incomparably beautiful smile. Just like some poisonous flowers, the more beautiful they were, the more poisonous they were. Yang Dingtian, do you really want to come over and kneel down to lick your shoes? You have to think carefully. Can you bear it? Xiao Ruhan smiled. It's fine if you don't fulfill the bet. Yang Dingtian smiled faintly. You have to admit in front of everyone that you represent the power of the evil ways. You work for Ning Wuming of the evil ways. In order to survive, you sold yourself to Ning Wuming. On your side, I represent justice. That's enough. Yang Dingtian gave Xiao Ruhan a choice. She could either kneel down and lick his shoes or admit that the punitive expedition was controlled by the evil ways. If she knelt down and licked his shoes, it would be Xiao Ruhan's dignity that would be destroyed. If she admitted that the punitive expedition was controlled by the evil ways and admitted that Yang Dingtian was just, it would be a devastating blow to the entire punitive expedition, or at least to the entire Western Allied forces. It was one thing to have doubts in her heart. However, it was another thing to be exposed by the supreme leader of the punitive expedition. Of course, she could also choose to turn hostile and start a massacre. The scene was silent again. Everyone was waiting for Qiu Ruhan's choice. Haha. Qiu Ruhan laughed again. This time, her laughter was even more gorgeous and moving. It was even more chilling. Isn't the choice simple? Qiu Ruhan smiled and flew over gently. She came directly in front of Yang Dingtian. Perhaps it was because of the evil energy. Qiu Ruhan's beauty at this time was even more soul-stirring than the last time he saw her. This poisonous flower bloomed even more gorgeously. It was just that this kind of beauty was frightening. Then, Qiu Ruhan looked at Yang Dingtian with a smile. Yang Dingtian, I hope you won't regret it. Of course, you will regret it. Then, she looked up at Yang Dingtian and knelt down directly. Gradually, she lay down. Her delicate body looked even more like the undulating mountains and rivers. In this way, Qiu Ruhan gradually bent down in the most exaggerated posture. Her absolutely beautiful face had been looking up at Yang Dingtian all along. She was smiling all the time, but her beautiful eyes were cold and filled with countless vicious lights. When she reached Yang Dingtian's feet, she stuck out her tongue like a poisonous snake. Then, slowly, she licked Yang Dingtian's shoes.
It was not satisfying.
It was like licking wonderful honey. The whole process was very slow. The whole scene was incomparably tempting. Anyone who was treated like this by a peerless beauty of noble status, like Qiu Ruhan, would be incomparably confused, even at the cost of their lives. Everyone thought that watching this process would be incomparably satisfying. But the fact was the complete opposite. Almost everyone felt a chill run down their spines. Whether it was Yang Dingtian who was being served, or all the onlookers. During the whole process, cold sweat broke out on their backs. Qiu Ruhan's tongue was licking Yang Dingtian's feet. But everyone seemed to feel that there was a poisonous snake's tongue licking their faces. That poisonous and cold breath made people feel the arrival of the Grim Reaper. After seeing Qiu Ruhan licking his shoes, the fear of this woman in the hearts of everyone present became even stronger. Even Qin Huayu's face changed dramatically and became deathly pale. After slowly standing up, Qiu Ruhan stretched out her cold and smooth jade hand and stroked Yang Dingtian's face. She said lightly, "Okay, satisfied. If not, I can still do it." The muscles on Yang Dingtian's face twitched slightly, but he did not make any sound. "I know that whatever I say is useless, but I hope you don't vent your madness on the innocent," Yang Dingtian said lightly. "You think too much." Qiu Ruhan chuckled, and then her delicate body floated gently. Suddenly, a blue light trajectory was drawn and flew towards the west. Qin Huayu said, "This woman is going completely crazy." Yang Dingtian took a deep breath and glanced at the hundreds of thousands of troops on the other side of the river. These 100 suspension bridges should have exhausted the resources of the northwest Qin city in a short period of time. If he wanted to build another 100 suspension bridges, it would take more than a short period of time. Furthermore, the northwest Qin city was a few thousand miles away from here. Therefore, in a short period of time, the Western Army's eastward advance had been completely cut off. Moreover, these hundreds of thousands of troops had seen Yang Dingtian's miraculous performance and Qiu Ruhan's snake-like scene. Their hearts had turned cold, and their hostility and morale had dropped by a lot. No matter how crazy Qiu Ruhan would become in the future, what kind of consequences would there be? But now, the Western Army was blocked. Yang Dingtian's strategy of attacking 3 and letting go of 1 was completely completed. The next few days should be incomparably quiet. Just like before dawn, there was incomparable darkness. Before the madness, there was absolute silence. In the next few days, they would wait for the hundreds of thousands of troops of the Southern Army to head north and attack the city. Of course, some people might say that, with the suspension bridges destroyed, the hundreds of thousands of troops of the Western Army could not cross, but the experts above the Marshal Venerable level could still fly over. These Marshal Venerables and Grandmasters could still attack Cloud Sky City. But the truth was, Why did the evil ways organize 1 million troops to attack Cloud Sky City? Even the Zhongzhou Expeditionary Army had sent hundreds of thousands of troops from thousands of miles away. This was a complete waste of resources. In the hands of the evil ways, destroying Cloud Sky City was easy. There was no need for 5 million troops. 100,000 troops were enough. Even the 20,000 troops of the Ning clan of the South Sea were enough to turn Cloud Sky City into ruins and kill everyone in Cloud Sky City. People who had this kind of thinking had overlooked the most fundamental problem. That was, the evil ways had sent out more than 1 million troops, not to destroy Cloud Sky City at all. This kind of anti-aircraft artillery was used to kill mosquitoes. The only purpose was to create an image of the world besieging Cloud Sky City and the world fearing Yang Dingtian. This was because Yang Dingtian's team was currently the only force that could directly confront the evil ways. It was a flame. Extinguishing this flame was not important. What was important was to force the people of the world to take sides and send troops to attack Cloud Sky City. This was essentially a declaration of allegiance. A declaration of allegiance to the evil ways. A declaration of allegiance to justice and a declaration of allegiance to the Tiando League. Of course, the Western Army had another way to advance east. Didn't they still have 3,000 flying mounts? They could just directly transport the infantrymen over. They could transport 3,000 at a time. After half an hour, they could transport 60,000 to 70,000 people a day. In the next few days, they could also transport hundreds of thousands of troops over. Of course, it would be difficult to transport the mounts and large-scale military equipment over. Now, Yang Dingtian had destroyed the suspension bridges, giving Qin Wanzhou a sufficient excuse. Whether Qin Wanzhou wanted to use this excuse to delay the army's advance east was his problem. He believed that he had enough wisdom to handle this matter. Just like Qiu Wanjie in the Divine Weapons Manor, his son was captured, his army was ambushed, 40,000 to 50,000 people died, and the tunnel was blocked. Could it be that the army really couldn't advance? Of course they could. If the tunnel was blocked, they could send tens of thousands of people and hundreds of experts to clear the tunnel in one day. The army could still advance west. However, Qiu Wanjie had started to bide his time. The main reason was that Qiu Wanjie and Qin Wanzhou didn't want to completely sell themselves to Yang Dingtian. In their hearts, they still wanted to give Yang Dingtian a chance to prove himself. As long as there was a sufficient excuse, they would be happy not to send their troops. They were different from Song Shao from the World Society. Song Shao was determined to advance south to destroy Cloud Sky City and Yang Dingtian. Therefore, he had only given up completely after his power had been dealt a devastating blow. As for Qin Wanzhou and Qiu Wanjie, Yang Dingtian felt that he had a certain level of tacit understanding with them. Although Qiu Wanjie couldn't be compared to Qin Wanzhou, he was still considered a hero of his generation. Their craftiness made them sit on the fence, making them unwilling to face evil ways head-on. However, it was difficult to make them completely sell themselves to Yang Dingtian. 3rd Regiment of the Devil Dragon Army, listen to my orders. Guard the Abyss Castle. However, if the enemy's Western Legion crosses the border or steps into Cloud Sky City's territory, kill them all, Yang Dingtian ordered loudly. Yes. 1,000 soldiers of the 3rd Regiment of the Devil Dragon Army shouted in unison. Let's go back. Yang Dingtian said, it's time to make the final arrangements for the final battle in a few days. Yang Dingtian turned around, and the 500 Devil Dragon Army also quickly turned around. Qin Huayu said, if we leave like this, what if they cross the border again? What if we take the flying cavalry and set up the crystal crossbow formation again? Yang Dingtian said, I believe that your father has enough wisdom to handle this matter. I believe that he and I have a faint tacit understanding. At this moment, Qiu Ruhan didn't say anything. She sat on a flying mount, abandoned the hundreds of thousands of soldiers, and flew towards the west. Immediately after, Yu Wuqing frowned, jumped on his flying mount, and flew towards the south. Yu Wuqing was dead set on following the evil ways, so he would definitely report the latest situation to Ning Wuming and Qin Shiqi. Immediately after, all the master-level and martial honorable-level experts of the Western Legion left, leaving behind the hundreds of thousands of soldiers who were temporarily without a leader. Indeed, there were no fools in this world. Yang Dingtian destroyed the 100 pontoon bridges and won a political battle. Next, the entire Western Legion's decisions would depend on Qin Wanzhou. Yi Wucheng went to find Ning Wuming and Qin Shiqi, asking them to put pressure on Qin Wanzhou. Qiu Ruhan directly went to the northwest Qin city and displayed her power. These actions had only one goal, and that was to make Qin Wanzhou submit. Yang Dingtian had already done everything he could. Next, it would depend on Qin Wanzhou, his wisdom, and his willpower. It would depend on his performance and his choice. Return to the cities. Following Yang Dingtian's order, Yang Dingtian and the others, as well as the 500 Devil Dragon Legion soldiers, rushed towards Cloud Sky City like lightning. At this moment, the sky gradually darkened. At the border of the abyss, 1,000 Devil Dragon Legion's 3rd Regiment faced the abyss and looked towards the other side, eyeing covetously. As expected, there wouldn't be any battles in the next few days. There would be a few short days of peace. Then, the final battle would erupt. The final battle with evil ways, an earth-shattering final battle that would directly change the situation of the world. The chances of winning this final battle largely depended on Qin Wanzhou's willpower. Hopefully, Qin Wanzhou wouldn't disappoint him. He didn't need to do anything. As long as he delayed for 1 or 2 days, the situation would basically be settled. The current situation was very clear. If the Western Legion didn't advance east, the Eastern Legion wouldn't advance west. However, once Qin Wanzhou gave the order for the Western Legion to enter Cloud Sky City's territory, Qiu Wanzhi's Eastern Legion would have no choice but to open up a tunnel to enter Cloud Sky City. Qin Wanzhou, I've already done what I could. I hope you won't disappoint me. Yang Dingtian sped up and turned his head towards the west to take one last look. He thought in his heart. 2 hours later, Yang Dingtian and the others had already entered Cloud Sky City like lightning. At this moment, the sky was already completely dark. The outside of Cloud Sky City's city walls were still brightly lit, turning into an incomparably huge construction site. Countless people were carrying out the final construction and strengthening of the city walls. Even though there wouldn't be any battles until the final battle, Yang Dingtian still couldn't rest because he still needed to make the final modifications to Cloud Sky City's army. According to the summary of the past few days' battle experience, he needed to make the final improvements to the army's weaknesses. I'll give you a 4-hour break.
You still need to rest.
Take a bath when you need to. Go talk to people when you need to. Yang Dingtian said to Qin Huayu, Zhu Hongxue, and the others. After 4 hours, all members of the committee will come to the main hall to make the final modifications to the army and make the final deployment for the final battle. Yes. Qin Huayu charged towards Song Lihua like a bolt of lightning. Zhu Hongxue had nowhere to go. In the end, he flew towards the final part of the city walls. He'd better use the mystic fire to blow up the city walls. Yang Dingtian rode on the demonic dragon and sped towards Cloud Sky City. Ever since returning to Cloud Sky City, Yang Dingtian had been constantly fighting, and fighting. Not to mention sleeping or resting, he hadn't even seen Bao Bao. Taking advantage of these precious 4 hours, he went to the valley to see Bao Bao and to spend some time with his family. At this moment, Yang Dingtian really missed Bao Bao. However, at the entrance of Cloud Sky City, Yang Dingtian was blocked by a person. A stunning beauty, an extremely charming fox spirit, was riding on the back of a beautiful ray and floating at the entrance of the city. Her beautiful eyes were like flowing spring water as she looked at Yang Dingtian and said softly, "Little boy, your performance just now moved my heart. Once a fox spirit is moved, it's very scary." You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.